A sudden outbreak of a zombie virus erupted at a high school. The surviving students united to escape the confines of their institution, only to discover that the outside world had long since succumbed to the reign of the undead. Where should they venture from here? Confronted with the darker facets of human nature, will they retain their kindness? Is it truly the case that survival in an apocalyptic world necessitates a heartless and inhumane disposition? Chapter 1. The arrival of the zombies on January 1st, 2022, at Ancheng No.1 High School, in the male dormitory. Yichen was roused from his slumber by a cacophony of screams. As he opened his eyes, the dormitory remained shrouded in dimness. A glance at his phone revealed it was already past 9 in the morning. The curtains were drawn tightly, preventing any sunlight from penetrating, rendering the entire room enveloped in a haze. The piercing screams continued to emanate from outside, and Yichen, feeling irritable, turned over in bed, muttering, "Is it really necessary to be this worked up over New Year's Day? Can't a person get some sleep?" This weekend marked the New Year holiday, granting the students a 3-day respite. With the exception of Yichen and Zhou Feng, the rest of their dorm mates had returned home. Consequently, the two had indulged themselves the previous night, gaming until the early hours, planning to sleep in today. Yet, the relentless screams persisted, escalating in intensity. Yichen was about to draw back the curtains and hurl a torrent of expletives at the commotion outside when Zhou Feng stealthily approached from the opposite bunk, his expression grave and tense as he gazed at Yichen. "Go, are you all right?" Zhou Feng's voice was barely above a whisper, and without Yichen's keen hearing. He might not have discerned his words at all. "What could possibly be wrong with me? I just want to catch a few more hours of sleep. Aren't you tired? What on earth is happening out there?" Yichen yawned widely and rolled back onto his bed. "Are you really fine?" Zhou Feng waved his hand in front of Yichen's face. "Go, do you feel any stiffness in your body? Or have you suddenly felt the urge to bite me?" "Stiffness, not entirely, but there is a certain peculiar feeling." "What on earth are you trying to say so sneakily this early in the morning?" Yichen was bewildered by Zhou Feng's odd behavior. "Go, keep your voice down." Zhou Feng lowered his tone even further, nearly whispering in Yichen's ear. "Something feels off outside. I think there might be zombies. If there are zombies, just deal with them. I'm going back to sleep," Yichen said as he pulled the blanket over his head. However, the screams continued intermittently, and Zhou Feng remained steadfastly beside his bed. "Go, as long as you are not afraid, I won't be either. I will always be your loyal little brother. You have to protect me." Zhou Feng, resembling a timid spouse, attempted to squeeze onto Yichen's bed, causing the narrow mattress to shake and emit ambiguous sounds. Yichen, who maintained a passion for fitness, a rarity among third-year high school students, was admired by his dorm mates for his exceptional physical prowess. Despite his slender frame, he was more than capable of taking on 2 or 3 ordinary individuals without breaking a sweat. In the dormitory, whenever conflicts arose, others often sought solace in Yichen's strength. Almost every student at the school was aware of Yichen's prowess in combat, thus refraining from provoking him. Particularly, Zhou Feng had come to regard Yichen as his shield, incessantly calling him Brother Chun, despite being several months his senior. "Are you asking for a beating today?" Yichen bellowed, yet Zhou Feng remained glued to his side, motionless. Just as Yichen was about to push Zhou Feng away, the dormitory door was suddenly struck with a violent thud. Bang! The sound was so thunderous that it felt as though the entire dormitory trembled. Immediately following, another bang echoed, accompanied by a strange, chilling chuckle, as if mocking Yichen's earlier shout. "Brother Chen, they're here. The zombies are coming." Zhou Feng pressed against Yichen, his voice trembling with fear. "Brother Chen, we can't possibly die like this, right? I haven't spent my allowance for the month yet." Sensing the gravity of the situation, Yichen noted that Zhou Feng, though typically timid, was exhibiting an unusual level of terror, which was decidedly alarming. Observing Zhou Feng's unusual demeanor, Yichen hesitated to open the door, for Zhou Feng's fear seemed genuine. He lacked the acting chops to feign such dread. Fortunately, the entity that struck the door only did so twice before retreating. The screams from downstairs gradually diminished, yet they remained audible. Yichen resolved to disregard the corridor for the moment, opting instead to draw back the curtains and step onto the balcony for a clearer view. What he beheld nearly halted his heart. In the courtyard below, the ground was awash with a shocking crimson hue, an overwhelming stench of blood assailing his senses. Beneath a fragrant osmanthus tree, a male student lay half reclined against the flower bed, intermittently emitting faint cries that grew fainter by the moment. Beside him, 2 boys of similar age were gnawing at his chest, each bite releasing a fresh spurt of blood. Within moments, the victim's cries ceased entirely. A few minutes later, the boy rose, his chest grotesquely gaping to reveal his innards, yet he appeared oblivious to his wounds, emitting a sound akin to chilling laughter. He and the 2 boys who had bitten him began to wander aimlessly, as if in search of something. Witnessing this horrific scene, Cold sweat trickled down by Yichen's back. So, the creature that although Zhou Feng was somewhat startled, he heeded by Yichen's words and promptly rose to assist in moving the desks. Together, they huffed and puffed, transporting the 2 study tables to the entrance, effectively barricading the dormitory door, before finally exhaling in relief. What on earth was happening? It was only now that Bai Yichen had the opportunity to inquire about Zhou Feng's situation. Zhou Feng shook his head, expressing his ignorance, stating that he had not awakened much earlier than Bai Yichen. He recounted being startled awake by a piercing scream, only to glance outside and witness a zombie attacking a person. I know nothing. Thank goodness, Brother Chen, you remain unchanged and have not succumbed to becoming a zombie. But what shall we do now? Bai Yichen's mind was in disarray. He had no understanding of the events that had transpired and was left wondering what could be done. He pinched Zhou Feng, who yelped in pain but, mindful of their precarious situation, merely muttered, "Ouch. Brother Chen, let go." The pain was real, not a mere figment of a dream. Bai Yichen mused aloud. Zhou Feng, immediately displeased, retorted, "Why don't you pinch yourself?" Bai Yichen responded, "Why would I do that? I'm not foolish." As he spoke, he reached for his phone. Zhou Feng interjected, "It's pointless, Brother Chen. I've already checked. There's no signal, no internet, no news whatsoever. The entire world may have fallen. We are doomed." Chapter 2. Self-rescue. Bai Yichen understood the validity in Zhou Feng's assessment. Yet he clung to a glimmer of hope. What if the crisis was confined solely to the school? Perhaps no one had entered or exited the campus today, and thus the outside world remained oblivious to the chaos unfolding within. He took his phone, confirming once more that there was indeed no signal or internet access. Calls could not be made, nor could messages be dispatched. He had lost contact with the outside world at an unknown moment. His last message was from the previous night, informing his mother in Xi'an that he would return home for the winter break. This was unacceptable. He needed to ascertain the situation. As he spoke, he plugged in the internet cable and powered on the computer resting on the desk. It was imperative to understand the external circumstances. The power indicator flickered briefly, illuminating the computer screen. As expected, not only was the wireless connection absent, but even the wired connection showed no signs of signal. Could it be true, as Zhou Feng had suggested, that everything was lost? The dormitory lights were still operational, and water flowed from the faucet in the bathroom on the balcony, indicating that both electricity and water supply were functioning normally. Surely, the situation could not be as dire as it seemed. However, contemplating the electricity and water, Bai Yichen immediately instructed Zhou Feng to charge all devices capable of storing power and to fill buckets and basins with water. Brother Chen, we should be considering how to call for help from the outside. What use is it to charge and fetch water? Zhou Feng did not grasp Bai Yichen's rationale. We are utterly unable to relay a distress signal. We cannot simply shout into the void. Before rescuers arrive, we might be devoured by those creatures outside. It would be wiser to devise a means of self-preservation first. Brother Chen, how can we save ourselves? The words of Bai Yichen echoed. We must gather water and charge our devices. Although there was no power outage or water shortage at the moment, the complete absence of network signals indicated a grim reality. It was conceivable that essential utilities were controlled by smart devices, and thus, a sudden cessation of electricity or water could occur at any moment. If we fail to prepare in advance, we would be courting disaster. Without hesitation, Bai Yichen retrieved a basin to collect water, even filling every empty mineral water bottle with it. Zhou Feng soon recognized the gravity of the situation and hurried to charge his power bank. Once their preparations were complete, both sat on the edge of the bed, lost in thought, listening to the occasional heavy footsteps reverberating in the corridor, accompanied by a chilling, sinister giggle. For several minutes, Bai Yichen could even hear the sound of teeth gnawing, as if flesh and bone were being torn apart. Somewhere, a classmate was being devoured by what once were their own kind. His heart raced as he attempted to convince himself that it was merely another trapped student indulging in snacks. Yet, amidst the crunching, there was an unmistakable hint of a faint groan, as if someone was enduring immense pain. This was knowledge he could not allow Zhou Feng to discover. Otherwise, his panic nature would surely lead to a frenzy. Bai Yichen feigned calmness, silently sitting at the edge of the bed. After a while, Zhou Feng quietly inquired, Brother Chen, how did these zombies come to be? Are there still any living people in this building? I don't know, Bai Yichen sighed. Perhaps a virus transmitted through the air has infected everyone, or someone was bitten and brought the infection into the school. He pondered the situation outside, wondering what it was like. Many had gone home for the holiday. If all was well beyond the school's walls, they would likely be rescued soon. Conversely, if the outside world mirrored their own plight, then the school might indeed offer greater safety, given the dwindling number of individuals within. So, Brother Chen, what do you suggest? Zhou Feng pressed. We remain vigilant and endure in the dormitory for 3 days. Once the holiday concludes, if all is well outside, people will surely return to campus. With a heavy sigh, Bai Yichen threw himself onto his bed, yearning for a brief respite. He had not slept well the previous night, and after the flurry of activity and sudden fright, there was nothing to occupy his mind but sleep. Remaining idle would only lead to spiraling thoughts and mental collapse. Prolonged conversation was risky, as it might attract the attention of the zombies lurking in the corridor. Feng, too, began to feel drowsy, silently curling under the covers. In that stillness, both lay in silence. However, Bai Yichen did not quickly succumb to slumber. Instead, he pondered their precarious situation. The most pressing threat they faced was not the zombies outside, but rather the dwindling food supplies within the dormitory. If provisions were ample, they could survive in their sanctuary, indifferent to the turmoil outside. However, insufficient food meant that, should they remain without rescue for too long, they would have to risk venturing out in search of sustenance. As he continued to brood, Bai Yichen could no longer remain prone and sat up abruptly. To his surprise, Feng was also wide awake, promptly following suit. "Brother Chun, do you have any instructions?" Bai Yichen replied, "Let us gather all the food in the dormitory and see how much we have to allocate." He began to retrieve his own provisions, which included 4 packets of instant noodles, half a bottle of spicy sauce, a bag of pickled vegetables, and half a carton of milk. Feng, however, possessed only 2 bags of yogurt and a few pieces of chocolate. He had intended to make a substantial grocery run that afternoon, but it seemed that would not come to pass. "This meager amount won't sustain us for 2 days. Feng lamented, particularly disheartened by the realization that if he were to subsist solely on yogurt and chocolate, he would barely have enough for a single meal. "Brother Chun, you'll share your food with me, won't you?" "Certainly. From this moment forth, we are inseparable. I will never show favoritism. I hope that when the time comes to fight for our survival, we can trust each other with our lives." Bai Yichen understood that if they could not be rescued soon, he and Feng must cultivate a bond of unwavering trust, as survival in such dire circumstances would be impossible without it. Although Bai Yichen had yet to fully grasp the depths of human nature's darkness, he had witnessed enough through film and television. He hoped that by making the first sacrifice, he could ensure that Feng would retain an untainted heart towards him in the future. Feng assumed Bai Yichen was merely speaking in jest, but when he witnessed Bai Yichen genuinely handing over 2 packets of instant noodles and 6 bottles of milk, he was utterly taken aback. Despite Feng's seemingly timid demeanor, he was acutely aware of the gravity of the situation. Bai Yichen's willingness to share half of his rations equated to entrusting him with a portion of his life, leaving Feng deeply moved to the point of tears. "Brother Chun, from this day forth, my life belongs to you. I will do whatever you say." Chapter 3. Aerial delivery that is entirely unnecessary. Bai Yichen waved his hand dismissively. "I still have plenty of food. Come help me." Feng turned to see Bai Yichen rummaging through their roommate Lu Bo's cupboard, extracting an array of treats: jelly, milk tea, lollipops, biscuits, chocolate, milk, chips, and spicy strips. Feng marveled at the apparent treasure trove within Lu Bo's cabinet. How does this guy have so much food? Feng's eyes sparkled with excitement as he joined Bai Yichen in collecting the items, popping a lollipop into his mouth. He had not anticipated that Lu Bo had been hoarding snacks without informing them. It made sense why Lu Bo had been acting strangely lately, distancing himself from them. He had been concealing food instead of sharing. He has been pursuing a girl, and these snacks are for her, Bai Yichen explained. Lu Bo, who had never had a particularly close relationship with Bai Yichen and the others, was so preoccupied with his romantic interest that he could scarcely imagine that the very snacks he had procured for a girl would ultimately save Bai Yichen and Feng's lives. Uncertain whether Wu Hao is involved in a romantic relationship, we decided to inspect his cabinet. Feng placed a pile of snacks upon the desk and promptly proceeded to open Wu Hao's cabinet. To his dismay, aside from an array of books, the only contents revealed were a single bag of 50-cent pickled vegetables. Wu Hao was undoubtedly the most financially challenged among the dormitories for inhabitants. Among them, Feng was the most well-off. His parents operated a business abroad and initially intended to take him along, but he preferred to remain in the country, which explained his absence during the New Year festivities. Although his family resided in a grand villa, the solitude of returning home alone held little appeal for him. He much preferred to stay behind and engage in gaming with Bai Yichen. Bai Yichen hailed from a more modest background, being an outsider whose parents sent him to this school for its commendable educational quality. As for Lu Bo, little was known about his family circumstances, as he seldom mingled with the others. While Wu Hao maintained a decent rapport with Bai Yichen and the others, his financial struggles rendered him a diligent student. As he understood that education was the only viable pathway to change for someone from a less fortunate background, Bai Yichen spread out Lu Bo's collection of snacks on the table, counting them methodically. However, it became evident that their provisions would suffice for merely 3 days. Despite the seemingly abundant snacks in Lu Bo's cabinet, 2 grown men would find it challenging to satiate their appetites. 3 days it would be, after all. Enduring this period might lead to external assistance arriving. Do you think the girls' dormitory has an abundance of food? Feng suddenly inquired. Without a doubt, Yichen replied. The essence of women is akin to that of hamsters. They relish stockpiling. As he spoke, he couldn't help but gaze toward the balcony. Casting his eyes across to the girls' dormitory, approximately 200 meters away, diagonally opposite. At that moment, it was strikingly quiet over there, leaving one to ponder whether all had returned home, or if they had all succumbed to some zombie-like fate. If only they could stealthily infiltrate the girls' dormitory. Their future days would be free from concerns of sustenance. Yichen contemplated that if they remained unrescued in 3 days, they would have to devise a plan to breach the girls' quarters. At that moment, a notification sounded from the mobile phone resting on the bed, causing both to nearly leap in excitement. Could it be a signal? A signal would mean they could communicate with the outside world, ascertain the current situation, or even call for help. Yichen quickly seized the phone to check, only to find the signal indicator still displayed no service. However, the phone had received an airdrop from a nearby individual. To their astonishment, there were indeed other living beings nearby, and not far from them. It was noteworthy that the airdrop function typically operated within a range of merely 10 meters, indicating that the sender was likely residing in the adjacent dormitory. Perhaps just one room over. Yichen promptly accepted the airdrop from a student named Zhou. The content was a short video, and upon viewing it, Yichen broke into a cold sweat. The video appeared to have been filmed by the individual who initiated the airdrop, and judging by the angle, it was evident that he resided in the dormitory immediately to their left, room 216. The dormitory was situated precisely at the corner of the corridor, affording a clear view of the entrance to the boys' dormitory and the duty room of the dormitory manager. The video footage was directed towards this very duty room. Within the video, a few zombies, which had previously been wandering beneath Yichen's building, were seen staggering towards the entrance of the dormitory courtyard. Just as they were nearing the entrance, 2 boys suddenly burst in from the street, one of them covered in blood, possibly injured. The zombies, initially meandering in the courtyard, became agitated upon sensing the fresh prey, their movements quickening as they surged towards the 2 boys. In their haste to reach the courtyard, the boys failed to notice the approaching trio of exuberant zombies, likely mistaking them for fellow students and believing they were on the verge of salvation. By the time they realized that the figures bearing down on them were not human, but rather infected zombies, it was too late. They were already within an embraceable distance. Quick, let us take refuge in the duty room, the bloodied individual exclaimed, reaching for his companion. The 2 rushed towards the duty room, yet found the door unyielding. As the zombies closed in, they knelt before the small structure, bowing their heads as if uttering a prayer. At that moment, Yichen discovered that someone was indeed inside the duty room. The dormitory manager, a man in his 30s, pressed his face against the glass, coldly observing the 2 students beseeching him, utterly unmoved by their plight. Moments later, the zombies lunged forward, rendering the boys' desperate resistance futile. The dormitory manager watched with chilling indifference as the 2 students were torn apart, their lifeless bodies ultimately joining the ranks of the undead, aimlessly wandering the courtyard. As the video concluded, Feng, noticing Yichen's pallor, leaned in to see what had so unsettled him. At that moment, classmate he sent over 2 images. The first was a photograph of a handwritten note, chilling Yichen's heart. Students who receive my video, please be advised, the dormitory manager has just entered from the downstairs entrance. It is best not to engage with him, nor to show compassion by opening the door. The second image depicted the dormitory manager, clad in a thick coat and scarf, thoroughly bundled against the elements, wielding a long machete as he advanced towards the dormitory area. Behind him, 2 dismembered corpses of zombies lay, a testament to his brutal efficiency. Chapter 4. A glimpse at 214 Yichen speculated that the duty room at the entrance likely lacked the resources necessary for survival. Otherwise, the area appeared relatively safe. Furthermore, the dormitory manager had not ventured outside, suggesting that conditions beyond the dormitory may be even more dire. Or perhaps he possessed a deeper understanding of the situation within the dormitory, which remained obscure to others. Yichen observed closely and discovered that the dormitory supervisor had actually used adhesive tape to tightly bind the sleeves of his clothes, as well as the pant legs, indicating a certain level of experience. He had seen such a disguise in films before and noted it mentally, preparing to adopt the same method should they ever find themselves needing to escape. However, what weighed heavily on his mind was the question of what the dormitory supervisor would do upon entering the dormitory building. Feng remained oblivious to the unfolding situation until Yichen showed him the video he had received earlier. Feng erupted in anger, exclaiming, "How can this scoundrel, who is paid by the school, treat students this way? Has humanity completely vanished?" At that moment, it seemed that many had indeed lost their humanity. With a sense of urgency, Bai Yichen remarked that if the current situation did not improve, such incidents would likely become increasingly frequent, and they must devise a strategy to protect themselves. Zhou Feng glanced at his slender arms and legs, then thought of Bai Yichen's formidable fighting prowess. Unable to restrain himself from asking, "Brother Chun, you won't abandon me, will you?" "Never," Bai Yichen reassured him. "We are brothers." He offered Zhou Feng a sense of security. For if they were to survive in a world overrun by zombies, they would need not only combat skills, but also a loyal companion to ensure their survival. After spending more than 2 years together in high school, Bai Yichen felt that both Zhou Feng and Wu Hao were the kind of individuals worth having as lifelong brothers. In this dire moment, he realized he could only confront the challenges ahead alongside Zhou Feng. Zhou Feng, moved, nearly bowed in gratitude, but Bai Yichen swiftly prevented him, signaling for silence. Instantly, they fell quiet, hearing the sound of someone kicking the door downstairs, a noise growing increasingly frantic. In such circumstances, everyone wished to remain utterly silent. The only one capable of such frenzied door-kicking could only be the dormitory supervisor. Bai Yichen quickly deduced that someone on the first floor was hiding in the dormitory, possessing resources necessary for survival, which was likely why the supervisor was attempting to extract supplies from them. The commotion attracted the zombies in the corridor, and the sounds of shuffling footsteps and guttural growls gradually approached the stairwell. Bai Yichen pondered why the supervisor, who possessed a key, would resort to such measures. It seemed illogical to attract all the zombies without any intention of helping the trapped students. After all, this was the same individual who had coldly watched 2 boys being devoured outside the reception area. It was implausible that he would suddenly show compassion and risk his life to assist others. Just as Bai Yichen continued his contemplation, the kicking ceased abruptly, followed by the sound of someone ascending the stairs. A young voice murmured, presumably belonging to a student residing in the dormitory. "Uncle, do you think we can really find something to eat? Should we check the school store or the nearby supermarket?" The young voice inquired. The door of the convenience store was locked, making it rather challenging to pry open. As for the large supermarket outside, that was an entirely futile thought. This was the voice of the dormitory manager, sounding as if he were privy to some insider information. "Very well, I'll heed your counsel." A youthful voice, tinged with admiration, responded, "Uncle, it was fortunate that your clever idea attracted all the zombies to the first floor, allowing us to ascend so easily to the upper level. But do you really believe we can find food? I noticed that fellow on the first floor collected a delivery just 2 days ago, seemingly filled with provisions. Why must we venture to the second floor? The second floor is decidedly safer. Have you not observed that those creatures appear reluctant to ascend the stairs? They seem to tumble down in a chaotic manner. Moreover, I am aware of that individual you mentioned. None of his dormitory mates returned home for the new year, and they have all transformed into such monstrosities. Why provoke them unnecessarily? Several dormitory rooms on the second floor received substantial food deliveries just a couple of days ago. Aside from room 214, which may pose a challenge, the others should not be problematic." A cold sweat broke out on Bai Yichen's brow. Room 214 was indeed his own dormitory, and the dormitory manager's reference to a troublesome individual undoubtedly pertained to him. Bai Yichen was taken aback by the profound impression he seemed to have left on the dormitory manager. Not to mention the fact that the manager was acutely aware of who had received which deliveries throughout the entire building. Bai Yichen gestured to Zhou Feng, who instinctively moved closer. The two pressed firmly against the table barricading the doorway. At that moment, the footsteps of the dormitory manager drew near, and they both heard the clinking of keys. The manager was unlocking the door to the adjacent dormitory. Bai Yichen fervently hoped that the occupants of that room had returned home for the holidays. Otherwise, facing this formidable figure, along with his accomplices, would likely lead to dire consequences. With a click, the door swung open, followed swiftly by a young man's scream, and the door slammed shut with a resounding thud. "How revolting!" the young man exclaimed, shaken. Inside, there are 2 of those creatures, one of them with its intestines spilling out, and all the packages on the floor have been contaminated. What bad luck in your dormitory. Only 2 individuals remain. I am fully aware of the circumstances, so there is no need for pretense. Should you continue to refuse entry, I shall force my way in, and it will be far from simple. This knife in my hand does not discern its targets. Chapter 5. Classmate. The voice of the dormitory supervisor echoed coldly, as a sharp watermelon knife was abruptly thrust through the door gap, shaking violently up and down. Such theatrics are merely intended to intimidate, yet they pose no actual threat to Bai Yichen and his companion, for there lies a desk between them and the blade, preventing any contact. "I will count to 3, the supervisor's voice resumed. 1, 2. Suddenly, Bai Yichen lowered his voice, emitting a few chilling cackles from his throat, startling Zhou Feng to the brink of losing control. Had he not noticed the mischievous grin adorning Bai Yichen's face, he might have cried out in alarm. Fortunately, Zhou Feng was not foolish. He quickly grasped that Yichen intended to feign the appearance of a corpse, hoping to dissuade the two outside. After all, they had just heard the supervisor mention that if the troublemaker from room 214 were to become infected, it would lead to dire consequences. Brother Chen aimed to intimidate them into retreating. Feng promptly mimicked a couple of cries in a high-pitched voice, which elicited a curse from the supervisor outside. What bad luck, infected again. Let us check room 216. That fool was filming on the balcony earlier, and he likely has supplies. As the footsteps receded, Yichen and Feng gradually relaxed, though they dared not exhale, fearing the duo might circle back. Although in a 2-on-2 confrontation, they might not necessarily be at a disadvantage. The supervisor had already proven to be a desperate individual, armed and dangerous, warranting caution. At this moment, Yichen's concern shifted to the classmate he in room 216. He initially contemplated sending a message via telekinesis, but feared it might inadvertently expose both his and the other's position, a risk not worth taking. Compelled by instinct, Yichen grasped a mop, straining to listen to the commotion outside. Should the situation deteriorate, he would likely intervene. Though the supervisor and the young man might no longer be human, he still was, and he must preserve his heart, his humanity. The door to room 216 was knocked upon. Yet the anticipated curses from the supervisor were absent. With a loud bang, it seemed the door had been kicked open, followed by the young man's incredulous exclamation about an abundance of food. Then, with another resounding thud, the door slammed shut. They remained within room 216, not emerging. Could it be that the fellow in 216 was killed? Feng whispered. Yichen shook his head, having heard no sounds of struggle. They likely had not harmed one another. Did that imply that the classmate he from 216 had transformed into a monster? Or had they reached a mutual understanding? Yichen shook his head once more. Not a whisper from the classmate reached them, and it was likely he had departed before the supervisor entered. Furthermore, there had been no sound of the supervisor opening the door. Room 216 appeared to be ajar, and upon entry, they must have discovered the food. I suspect that classmate he acted deliberately to divert the supervisor's attention, buying himself time to escape. Uncertain, Feng shook his head. He held no expectations for understanding. Yichen glanced towards the balcony and suddenly rose to head in that direction. Just moments ago, he thought he had heard a sound emanating from the balcony. Gripping the mop with both hands, Yichen slowly drew back the curtains and leaned out. To his astonishment, he spotted an individual clad in a black down jacket, backpack slung over their shoulders, precariously hanging from the outer side of the balcony of dormitory 215. Their hands, red from the cold, clutched the railing tightly, while their feet teetered on a narrow ledge of only a few centimeters wide, inching cautiously towards 216. Yichen couldn't help but feel a surge of anxiety for the person in the black jacket, though a fall from the second floor might not guarantee injury. The courtyard below was currently prowled by several zombies, likely lured there by the dormitory supervisor moments earlier. Should this individual tumble from the balcony, they might be devoured in an instant, leaving no trace behind. Yichen found the figure somewhat familiar, as if he had seen them a few times in the academic building, likely a fellow classmate from the same year. He promptly set down the mop and reached out to pull them in, only for the individual to release one hand, place it to their lips in a shushing gesture, and point towards 216. Understanding the silent communication, Yichen formed the words with his lips. Shall he? The person nodded, indicating for Yichen to step aside. As he moved to the side, the newcomer shifted slightly, and with a sudden swing of their legs, they effortlessly landed on the balcony of 216, leaving Yichen momentarily speechless. Feng, upon hearing the commotion, drew back the curtains to peek outside, and was equally taken aback. He's Yichen. Feng. The two individuals embraced suddenly, akin to long-lost lovers, were it not for the fact that both were male. What are you doing here? Feng inquired, astonished. I was about to ask you the same. Shao, he replied. Is this really the place for a conversation? Yichen observed, exasperated, as the two shared a knowing glance and lifted the curtains to enter the dormitory. Yichen leaned out again, surveying the scene below. Approximately 10 zombies congregated in the courtyard, while the dormitory building remained eerily silent, and 216 appeared deserted. Quietly returning to the dorm, he began to interrogate Feng and the newcomer, Shao He. It turned out that Feng and Yichen were neighbors. Their families had gone abroad together for business. But Feng had not accompanied them, whereas Yichen had. Consequently, they had not seen each other for over a year. The reason for their unexpected reunion today stemmed from Yichen returning to the country a little over a week ago and enrolling as a transfer student at Yichen. However, he had struggled to obtain Feng's contact information, which had prevented them from connecting until now. This encounter was purely coincidental. Yichen, being an adept parkour enthusiast with a modest reputation in the community, found today's escapade to be a mere display of his skills. This explained why Zhou Feng was not particularly surprised by his sudden appearance. He had long grown accustomed to such feats. Yichen was profoundly astonished during his first close encounter with such a performance. Was this not akin to scaling walls and flying through the air? The presence of multiple individuals with such skills within their group undoubtedly provided an added layer of security. Yichen inquired of Yichen why she had chosen to abandon her dormitory, embarking on such a perilous relocation, especially given the dormitory manager's earlier response, which suggested that Yichen had left behind a considerable amount of food. Yichen promptly slapped her thigh and declared, "What I left for them were merely insufficient puffed snacks, which may appear plentiful but are far from fulfilling. The real treasures are here with me." As she spoke, she opened her backpack, revealing several cans of luncheon meat and self-heating hot pots. With great enthusiasm, she asked Zhou Feng if they had any food to share, suggesting that they could all partake together. Zhou Feng quickly relayed their provisions, and Yichen proposed that they combine their supplies for communal sharing. This collaboration significantly augmented their material reserves, diversifying their options and alleviating the previously tense atmosphere. For the time being, they could rest assured in the dormitory, awaiting rescue. As night fell, Zhou Feng pondered the number of students remaining in their building for the new year, and how many were still alive, like them, waiting for salvation. He sighed, "Shouldn't we find a way to alert the other students to be wary of that dormitory manager?" Yichen glanced toward the window, where the light was fading, and whispered, "They should remain in room 216 overnight, but whether they survive until morning is a matter of chance." "What do you mean? Are we supposed to storm in and eliminate them?" Zhou Feng questioned. "No, there's no need for us to intervene," Yichen replied with an enigmatic smile. "I left my phone over there." At this revelation, Yichen comprehended much of the situation, while Zhou Feng pressed further, "You gave them your phone? That makes it their death knell for tonight." Yichen's expression shifted, her gaze fierce. "The dormitory manager has caused the demise of more than just those two downstairs. Who knows what they did on the first floor? They attracted all the other zombies there. To my knowledge, many students remain behind, not returning home. The young man accompanying him is his nephew, and he likely isn't a good person either. Our laws demand retribution for murder, especially in circumstances like these." Yichen instantly recognized Yichen's strong sense of justice, making her a trustworthy ally. He resolved that should the world truly descend into chaos dominated by the undead, the three of them must remain an inseparable unit, ensuring that betrayal would not be a concern and enhancing their chances of survival. Unaware that Yichen was contemplating their future, Zhou Feng continued to question Yichen. "How does leaving your phone over there become a death knell? Explain it to me." "Chenggu." Yichen shot him a glance. "Don't drag me into your ignorance." Clearly, she set an alarm on her phone. Yichen nodded in affirmation, acknowledging, "Indeed. Chenggu is exceptional. Did you perhaps damage the door lock?" Yichen inquired. "Not at all. The lock happened to break last night, and I haven't had the chance to repair it," Yichen replied. "A clever ploy," Yichen praised. Zhou Feng, growing impatient, interrupted, "What are you two talking about? Even if we told you, you wouldn't understand. You'll find out tonight." Yichen and Yichen exchanged knowing glances, opting not to mention the phone again. Zhou Feng, filled with curiosity, could only wait until nightfall to unravel the mystery. As the sky outside darkened, the trio decided to have dinner before it became too dark to see. They refrained from turning on the lights to avoid revealing their presence. While waiting for the instant noodles to soak, lights began to flicker on in the girls' dormitory across the way, indicating the presence of survivors. However, it remained uncertain whether their dorm supervisor posed a threat to their survival. Similar to what was happening in the boys' dormitory, Yichen ventured onto the balcony to observe, noting that apart from room 216, no lights were on in the boys' dormitory. Yet, he was aware that many survivors were still inside. They were likely putting on a facade of an empty dorm after witnessing the supervisor's actions during the day. In this eerie silence, the three finished their meal, leaning against the bunk beds, straining to hear any sounds from the darkness. Zhou Feng could no longer contain his curiosity and whispered, "Old he, did you leave behind a pile of puffed snacks to divert their attention and mask the sounds of your escape? What else could it be?" "Honestly, I didn't intend to leave them anything. I just wanted to eliminate them," Yichen replied through gritted teeth. Zhou Feng sighed in relief. "I thought you were avoiding trouble, which is why you didn't take any. Those snacks are quite delicious." Yichen dismissed Zhou Feng's comment and turned to Yichen. "Chenggu, what time is it?" "Almost 9, Yichen checked his phone. The show is about to begin. Shortly after Yichen spoke, music echoed from a distance, growing louder with a pulsating rhythm that nearly prompted Zhou Feng to dance on the spot. "Where is this lively music coming from?" Zhou Feng asked, fidgeting anxiously. "It's the sound of their death knell," Yichen explained. "I feared the alarm on my phone wouldn't be loud enough, so I connected a pair of Bluetooth speakers and set them to auto-connect. When the alarm goes off, The Bluetooth automatically links to the speakers. Otherwise, how would those zombies hear it? At that moment, footsteps echoed in the corridor, and suddenly, a violent banging erupted from room 215. What's happening in 215? Yichen couldn't help but ask. Oh, I passed by the balcony earlier and saw all 4 of them in their dorm. However, they were all infected. Moreover, their door lock is about to give way, Yichen replied. At that moment, the sound of a door lock being forcibly damaged echoed from the neighboring room, accompanied by a cacophony of hurried footsteps drawing closer to room 216. The incessant ringing of the alarm clock from within 216 persisted, now mingled with the shouts of increasingly agitated voices. Uncle, what on earth is happening? Will this noise attract those zombies? Even if they come, they can't enter. Our door is shut. Quickly, find out where that sound is coming from. Uncle, it seems to be coming from the cabinet, but it's locked. Oh no, Uncle. The door just opened. Did you do that? Do I look like someone who would open a door? What are you talking about? Panic surged as the realization dawned. The zombies had breached their sanctuary. Quick, bring me my knife. No, Uncle, please save me. Uncle, what followed was a tumultuous uproar, filled with cries of despair and the sounds of struggle, revealing the dire situation within room 216 without the need to witness it firsthand. The dormitory supervisors, having decided to spend the night in 216, had lowered their guard, tearing off the tape, shedding their heavy clothing, and setting aside their weapons. Such ordinary humans stood no chance against multiple zombies. Their tender skin and sharp teeth left no doubt as to which side would ultimately prevail. Amidst the chaos, it appeared that zombies were surging into the second floor, and the young man's cries grew increasingly desperate. Uncle, these zombies seem to in the corridor. The faint cries for help indeed dwindled and eventually faded away. The silence from room 216 was palpable, revealing the heartlessness of the dormitory manager, who could coldly witness the demise of her own nephew without so much as a flicker of emotion. In the darkness, Yichen solemnly advised, if one can turn against their own kin, how much more ruthless will they be towards others? It is best that we avoid any conflict with such a person. We must not let them know that there are survivors and provisions in room 214. Our movements must be more cautious, and our voices softer. Moreover, these zombies seem to have mutated. They can now navigate stairs. The corridor outside is crowded with them, and a single misstep could allow these creatures to breach our door. Both Zhou Feng and Yichen nodded in agreement. Yichen subsequently proposed, we cannot afford to sleep soundly tonight. From now on, one of us must keep watch each night to guard against unforeseen circumstances. Yichen immediately volunteered, stating that he had slept well the previous night, and due to the recent turmoil, he found himself unable to rest, thus he would take the first watch. Yichen did not object, and it was settled. After all, both he and Zhou Feng had not rested well the night before, and it was likely that many such nights of rotation lay ahead. For reasons unknown, Yichen sensed that the world outside was likely far more chaotic than within the confines of the school. The era of peace and prosperity seemed a distant memory. That night, each person was lost in their own thoughts, some sleeping while others kept watch. Inside the entire school, how many truly slumbered? Yichen awoke twice during the night, both times startled by nightmares. In the dark, the dim light outlined Yichen's silhouette quietly seated at the table. Feeling the reliability of his companion, Yichen turned over and sank back into a deep sleep. Around 5 in the morning, as dawn remained shrouded in haze, Yichen was once again awakened by piercing screams, reminiscent of the previous day. As he opened his eyes, the dormitory was dim and silent, evoking a surreal sensation that everything might be a mere dream. If not for the cacophony of screams outside, he might have believed he was still lost in slumber. However, the zombies, drawn by the shrieks, stirred restlessly, constantly reminding him that everything had irrevocably changed. Yichen quietly sat up, discerning that the screams originated from the boys' dormitory across the way. A group of girls was shrieking, their cries emanating from the girls' dormitory. Such desperate and prolonged wails awakened an inescapable fear and chill within him. The power had gone out. Yichen's voice broke through the murkiness. Yichen noticed that Yichen remained seated in the same spot as the previous night, unwavering. His teammate's steadfastness offered a flicker of warmth and security. Go to sleep. Dawn is approaching, Yichen advised. Yichen said nothing, simply finding an unoccupied bed to lie down, and soon drifted into slumber. Yichen groped for his clothes, dressed, and opened the door to the balcony, stepping outside. The entire school lay enveloped in darkness, the air tinged with a faint metallic scent and the stench of decay. Yichen recalled that before resting last night, although the boys' dormitory was devoid of lights, the street lamps below and sporadic lights from the girls' dormitory across the way illuminated the surroundings. Now, however, all lights had extinguished, and the only sound that pierced the darkness was the intermittent screams emanating from the girls' dormitory. He preferred to believe that their cries stemmed merely from a sudden power outage and the terror of the dark, rather than anything more sinister. The darkness preceding dawn is the most profound of the day, yet surely the light must be approaching? Standing on the balcony, Yichen observed the horizon gradually brightening. While the flora and fauna of the campus slowly emerged from obscurity, the chaos from the girls' dormitory finally began to subside, allowing him to exhale a sigh of relief. However, before he could fully release his breath, a tremendous crash resonated from the girls' dormitory. Bang! The sound of something heavy crashing to the ground startled Yichen, causing him to widen his eyes and peer intently. Bang! Another heavy thud followed, and this time he discerned a figure plummeting from the balcony of the girls' dormitory. He dared not contemplate whether the fallen form was alive or otherwise. Just as he was about to retreat into the dormitory, he suddenly felt something rush past him, followed by the jarring sound of a body hitting the ground below. His mind grasped the gravity of the situation, yet he could not resist the urge to lean out and take a glance. Below, a blurred figure lay sprawled on the ground, surrounded by a grotesque array of red and white, its body contorted in an unnatural manner, devoid of any signs of life. The sky had brightened considerably, and upon witnessing this scene, Yichen nearly retched. At that moment, Yichen and Zhou, awakened by the commotion, rushed to the balcony to investigate. Yichen wished to urge them not to look, but they were too frantic, already extending their heads over the edge. Upon glimpsing the gruesome sight, they recoiled in horror, with Zhou even retching audibly. Perhaps salvation will arrive tomorrow. Why hasten the end of one's life? Yichen lamented. Indeed, tomorrow marked the final day of the New Year's holiday, and it was anticipated that faculty and students would return by noon, offering a glimmer of hope. Yet, in this moment of despair, those individuals had succumbed to their fears. Suddenly, a voice from above whispered, "Whether there will be salvation tomorrow remains uncertain. He has departed early, perhaps to retain some semblance of dignity." Yichen looked up to find several heads peering over the edges of balconies in the boys' dormitory. Some were solitary, others in pairs, and some groups of 4, all neatly aligned. After counting, he realized that no fewer than 20 or 30 individuals remained alive in the boys' dormitory. It appeared they had been drawn out by the recent sound of the jump. In that moment, Yichen felt a surge of emotions. He had not anticipated such a number of survivors in the dormitory. Yet, he was not an optimistic soul. And a troubling thought crossed his mind. Perhaps the world outside had succumbed to chaos, and tomorrow would see no return to campus. The current state of affairs might persist, with each day becoming increasingly arduous. Today, there has been a power outage. Tomorrow, perhaps, there will be a water shortage. One day in the future, individuals may engage in fierce confrontations over a mere drop of water, no longer able to stand peacefully on the balcony as we do today. Nevertheless, regardless of the hardships faced, Yichen would never contemplate ending his own life. Even amidst a horde of zombies, he would devise a means to carve out a bloody path to survival. The curtain rose on January 2nd, 2022, under the crimson glow of the sun. Chapter 8. Rescuing Lives Before Long. The corpse downstairs attracted a swarm of zombies, ravenously feasting upon it. The grotesque sounds of their gnawing did not deter the students on the balcony. All gazed solemnly at the scene below. Although it was deeply unsettling, their eyes remained fixed. Perhaps they wished to use the death of a fellow student as a grim reminder to themselves that they must remain resolute in their will to live. In this world, even in death, one remains powerless. At some unknown moment, it seemed as though everyone's nerves had grown resilient, their gazes firm. It was not until the corpse was completely devoured, even the bloodstains on the ground licked clean, that those on the balcony withdrew their heads, falling silent. Perhaps they were still haunted by the previous actions of the dormitory supervisor, remaining vigilant. Yichen instinctively glanced towards room 216, where he spotted a figure on the balcony. As if sensing he was being observed, the figure abruptly turned, revealing the dormitory supervisor from the previous day. However, at that moment, the supervisor had transformed entirely. The fierce demeanor of yesterday had given way to a look of bewilderment. His eyes appeared vacant and murky, his face expressionless, with a prominent bite mark marring his cheek. A large piece of flesh protruding grotesquely, as if a second mouth had sprouted on his face. He had been infected and was likely in the throes of transforming from human to zombie, exhibiting a dazed and non-aggressive demeanor. Initially, Yichen felt a twinge of sympathy, but this was quickly replaced by a recollection of the supervisor's actions. His compassion evaporated, giving way to a sense of vengeful satisfaction. In that moment, Yichen realized that, in the face of such a life-threatening calamity, the grotesqueness of humanity was merely beginning to reveal itself. He turned and returned to the dormitory, relaying what he had witnessed to Yichen and Zhou, both of whom applauded in approval. Yichen, looking weary, lay down once more. while Feng expressed his unrestful sleep and decided to take a nap. Yichen took out his phone to check for signals, but there was none, no network. No new messages. A heaviness settled in his heart, surmising that the world outside was likely in an even worse state. Particularly concerning was the abrupt power outage in the early hours, a sudden occurrence that suggested the power station had been attacked. However, he dared not voice these speculations to the others, clinging to a sliver of hope. What if someone returned to campus tomorrow? The boys' dormitory fell eerily silent once more. If not for the multitude of people seen earlier on the balcony, Yichen might have believed that they were the last 3 living souls in the entire building. Meanwhile, the girls' dormitory had not known a moment's peace since the power outage, with sporadic cries of despair and calls for help, along with indistinct commotion echoing through the air. Yichen felt a profound sense of anxiety for the girls' dormitory, particularly considering that Yichen, the class monitor, had not returned home either. His concern intensified at the thought of her. She was delicate and frail, exuding an air of vulnerability. Despite her fragile appearance, she excelled academically and was remarkably kind-hearted, always ready to lend a helping hand. Her rapport with classmates was exceptional, yet he could not help but wonder if she was frightened in such dire circumstances or, worse, if she had met with misfortune. Yichen harbored no romantic inclinations towards Yichen. Rather, the thought of such a refined, beautiful, and benevolent girl confronting the grotesque realities of zombies and the darker aspects of human nature left him disillusioned with the world. As noon approached, Yichen and Feng awoke, and the 3 of them shared a meager meal before falling into a state of idle contemplation. Some scoured their phones for a signal, while others leaned against the beds in sheer boredom. Yichen stepped out onto the balcony, observing that under the gentle midday sun, the zombies appeared to have lost their vigor, huddled in the shadows like lifeless sentinels. Occasionally, a gust of wind would rattle a nearby can, prompting a few zombies to stagger aimlessly, only to retreat into the shadows moments later. Could it be that these zombies were afraid of the sunlight? As he gazed into the distance, he noted that the zombies had indeed ceased their movements, while those in the dormitory corridor occasionally exhibited erratic behavior, emitting growls or violently crashing against doors. Just as Yichen prepared to share this observation with Feng and the others, he suddenly heard a faint cry for help emanating from below. Doubting his own ears, he leaned over the balcony for confirmation and indeed discerned someone calling out, though their voice was weak and breathless. Who could be in distress? Yichen attempted to inquire in a tone that would be audible yet discreet. The response from below was intermittent. I'm a freshman. Yichen, residing in room 114. Wasn't he room 114 directly beneath them? Straining to see, Yichen called down, Yichen, what predicament are you in? I am Yichen, came a resigned reply from below. There are zombies in my dormitory, and I have been trapped on the balcony for a day and a half. Very well, Yichen. I shall procure some rope to lower food to you. Hold on for another day. Help may arrive by tomorrow. A sigh drifted up from below. Food might not suffice. The cold is unbearable. I am nearly frozen, and the balcony door is about to give way. I just want someone to talk to. As the voice trailed off, Yichen called out several times, but received no further response. Igniting a sense of urgency within him, Yichen, having heard the commotion, rushed out to inquire, and Yichen recounted the situation, expressing his intention to descend and investigate. This student does not appear to be infected. We cannot stand by and witness a living person perish from hunger or exposure before our very eyes. While speaking, Yichen searched the dormitory for rope. At this moment, contemplating a descent to the dormitory below, it would be unwise to risk the staircase, for the presence of dozens of zombies in the hallway would surely be enough to send anyone into a panic. The most expedient method would be to lower oneself using a rope. Yichen, seeing Yichen in search of a rope, promptly produced the black backpack he had brought the day before. After a brief rummage, he extracted a specialized mountaineering rope and tossed it over. We practitioners of parkour always carry a bit of rope, he declared as he clapped his hands. Yichen nodded and requested Yichen's assistance in securing the rope to facilitate his descent to assess the situation in the dormitory below. After a moment's thought, Yichen suggested, why not let me go down instead? I can easily descend via the external drainage pipe and return in less than 2 minutes. Yichen shook his head, gesturing for Yichen to observe below. Unbeknownst to them, several zombies had gathered at the base of the building, directly beneath their dormitory, closely positioned against the balcony of room 114 to which Yichen intended to venture. The male dormitory lacked security windows, yet the first-floor balcony had been intentionally constructed at a height, allowing for a direct confrontation with the zombies if one were to stand there. Fortunately, these zombies were incapable of performing such acrobatic feats as climbing walls. Otherwise, long before Yichen could call for help, every dormitory on the first floor would have been overrun. The situation below is not favorable. Since I intend to rescue someone, I cannot allow you to take unnecessary risks. Yichen stated firmly to Yichen. However, you are certainly less agile than I am. I have trained for this, Yichen countered. Yichen smiled, albeit with a hint of tension as he questioned whether he might tumble directly into the horde of zombies. Yet he replied, I have trained as well. At that moment, Feng approached and patted Yichen on the shoulder, saying, Old He, do not underestimate my brother Chun. Just ask around at our school. Who doesn't know the name of Chun from class 4 of the senior year? He can reach for the moon in the heavens above and catch turtles in the oceans below. Today, I shall show you. In the cover provided by Yichen and Feng, Yichen grasped the rope and slowly began to slide down towards dormitory 114. Chapter 9. Is this heaven? Though Yichen generally prided himself on his fitness, the complexity of this maneuver was unlike anything he had attempted before. And soon beads of perspiration began to form on his forehead. Peering down, he saw several zombies clustered below, motionless like elderly villagers snacking on sunflower seeds. Should he falter and fall, it would be akin to delivering a meal directly to the zombies. With a resolute heart, Yichen closed his eyes and, taking a deep breath, slid down approximately a meter. At that moment, his toes were nearly brushing the head of the highest zombie below, and an overwhelming stench of decay assailed his senses, a sensation unparalleled in its intensity. Fortunately, Yichen's movements were swift and stealthy, producing little sound. The zombies, though seemingly dazed and immobile, posed no immediate threat. At this moment, Yichen could discern the situation within the 114 balcony. He spotted a slender youth lying on the cold floor, clad in his clothes, his complexion pallid and lips tinged with purple, appearing to have succumbed to unconsciousness. Behind the boy, within the dormitory, 2 zombies were wandering about, occasionally emitting a chilling clatter that sent shivers down one's spine. Between the youth and the 2 zombies in the dormitory, there was merely a glass door, which bore visible cracks. No wonder he had previously remarked that the balcony door was on the verge of giving way. In such circumstances, should those 2 zombies detect the presence of a person on the balcony, a gentle shove would undoubtedly shatter the glass door into fragments. Yichen, Yichen called softly. But upon receiving no response, he noticed the few zombies at his feet suddenly lift their heads, gazing at him with a grotesque posture, as if eagerly anticipating his arrival. One of them even opened its mouth wide, as though it expected Yichen to tumble directly into its maw. What a stroke of misfortune! Yichen muttered under his breath, swinging himself onto the balcony and landing steadily beside Yichen. The zombies outside, witnessing this delectable morsel land before them, immediately surged forward, encircling the balcony tightly with their foul, grayish hands reaching in from outside, grasping wildly. Ignoring them, Yichen crouched down to assess Yichen's condition. Noticing the faint rise and fall of Yichen's chest, he felt a wave of relief wash over him. At least he was still alive. Yichen, can you hear me? Yichen called softly a few times. Yichen's fingers twitched, but his eyes remained shut, confirming that Yichen had not completely lost consciousness. Yichen devised a plan, hoisting Yichen onto his back and instructing him to hold on tightly, to prevent the possibility of him slipping away in his stupor. Yichen secured him with a rope, binding them together. At that moment, the 2 zombies that had been meandering in the dormitory finally noticed the living presence on the balcony and lunged forward with the ferocity of starving tigers. Disregarding the glass door entirely, with a resounding crash, the glass door collapsed, shards embedding themselves into the zombies' foreheads and faces. However, the grotesque visages showed no signs of blood, and the zombies felt no pain, continuing their relentless advance towards Yichen. Ah, Brother Chen, what is happening? On the second-floor balcony, Feng immediately inquired upon hearing the commotion, disregarding the need for hushed tones. With no reply from Yichen, Feng and Yichen leaned out to look, yet saw nothing, their worry manifesting as beads of sweat. Yichen even leaned half of his body out, wishing to jump down for a closer inspection. Yichen, carrying Yichen, moved noticeably slower. Nevertheless, he effortlessly dodged the 2 zombies lunging at him. However, the balcony was exceedingly narrow, and evading this attack did not guarantee he would escape the next. Confronting zombies is far from the simplicity of facing human adversaries. If the opposition consisted of 2 ordinary individuals, Yichen would feel no trepidation. Challenging 2 high school students would be a trivial endeavor for him. However, the scenario changes dramatically when it involves zombies. After all, a mere touch could lead to the fear of infection. How could one engage in combat without the inevitability of physical contact? The only viable strategy was to employ the 36 stratagems, to make a swift escape. Without a moment to ponder, Yichen leapt upward, seizing the rope that had just been lowered, and with a vigorous shake, swung himself off the balcony. The taut rope flung him outward, causing his hands to be painfully lacerated. Even more terrifying was the sight of the horde of zombies outside the balcony, exuberantly gesticulating and roaring with anticipation. In an instant, one of the zombies grasped his foot, and as it attempted to draw him closer to its ravenous maw, Yichen summoned all his strength to kick, sending the creature sprawling and simultaneously losing one of his shoes in the process. Now, with one bare foot exposed, the danger escalated. Even if he were not to be bitten, the mere touch of a zombie's hand could inflict a wound, leading to a potential infection. Regret washed over Yichen for not wearing socks during his descent. An additional layer of protection would have been prudent. As he observed the zombies clawing at the air, he desperately retracted his leg. However, the blood from his hand began to seep, making it increasingly difficult to hold onto the rope. His body gradually slipped downward, perilously close to the throng of zombies. Was this to be the end of my life? No, I refused to accept such a fate. Yichen's eyes blazed with determination. Ignoring the intense pain in his palm, he tightened his grip on the rope and heaved himself upward, simultaneously shouting for assistance. Yichen, who was observing from above, witnessed this moment and instinctively recoiled, grasping the rope to pull upward, with Feng quickly joining in. Feeling the rope ascend, Yichen exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. The events from the moment the two zombies burst forth from dormitory 114 to his retrieval took merely seconds. Yet Yichen felt as though he had traversed the threshold of death. Sitting on the ground, he felt every muscle in his body ache. Unable to fathom the horrific consequences had he lost his grip and fallen. Without the aid of Yichen and Feng, his escape would have been impossible, let alone rescuing another. A sense of pride surged within him at having saved someone, yet a chill ran down his spine at the close brush with death. Yichen had been settled into a bed by Feng, though he remained completely frozen, still recovering from the ordeal. Feng added an extra blanket, but it was swiftly tossed aside as Yichen murmured about warmth, despite his body being icy to the touch. This was hypothermia, Yichen noted, as he realized that prolonged exposure on the balcony had led to significant heat loss. If urgent measures were not taken, even divine intervention would be futile. What shall we do now? Feng inquired. Give him some hot water, Yichen replied. I believe I've encountered the concept of hypothermia somewhere before. It seems that a group of hiking enthusiasts succumbed to it due to a sudden drop in temperature, and ultimately, none were saved. Had they possessed even a modicum of warmth, the outcome might have been different. Indeed, Yichen commanded. I recall seeing a packet of sugar cubes in Lu Bo's cabinet. Feng, go fetch some, dissolve them in warm water, and give them to Yichen. Feng hurriedly retrieved the sugar, placed it in a cup, and patiently poured a generous amount of warm water from the kettle, carefully feeding it to Yichen. Moments later, Yichen slowly opened his eyes. Is this heaven? It feels remarkably similar to our dormitory, Yichen murmured. Chapter 10. Yichen, in comparison to your previous predicament, this certainly qualifies as heaven, Yichen responded. Feng embellished the tale of Yichen's heroic act to Yichen, who expressed his gratitude profusely. Seizing the opportunity, Yichen inquired about Yichen's feelings during the rescue. After all, they were all fervent youths, having accomplished something so extraordinary that they had never even contemplated, saving a life in peril. Yichen refrained from answering Yichen's question, instead pointing to his bare feet. I only have one piece of advice for everyone. Always wear socks. Upon noticing Yichen's sockless feet, Yichen immediately comprehended the urgency with which he had acted to save him, feeling deeply moved to the point of nearly breaking into tears. He repeatedly declared that his life was entirely at Yichen's disposal whenever he wished, exhibiting the demeanor of an overly sentimental youth. He incessantly referred to him as Brother Chun, asserting, from now on, you are my real brother. Oh, it's nothing really. It's just a pity about my shoes. I've only worn them a few times. I spent several hundred on them, Yichen lamented. I notice your shoe size seems to match mine, Yichen suddenly remarked, rummaging through his black backpack with swift hands. He then held up a pair of brand new shoes, still with tags attached, offering them to Yichen. These are new. Unworn. They're yours. Yichen was taken aback, not merely by the generous gift of a pair of limited edition sneakers worth thousands, but by the sheer capacity of Yichen's black backpack. Why had he managed to carry such an assortment of items while fleeing for his life? Do the bags of the wealthy possess such ample space? Could you enlighten me on what else you might retrieve from it? Nothing of significance, Yichen replied, casually producing a pair of seemingly high-quality new socks and tossing them to Yichen. As Yichen tried on the new shoes, he inquired of Yichen what had transpired, questioning how he had become trapped on the balcony in such a frozen state. Do not speak of my misfortunes. Yichen sighed. Yesterday morning, my sister called to inform me that she had brought some food to deliver to me, urging me to rise quickly and collect it from the entrance of our courtyard. However, just as I stepped onto the balcony to brush my teeth, I was startled by the inexplicable sounds emanating from my dormitory, where two of my classmates suddenly began to emit strange noises. In an instant, they descended into a frenzied state, clawing at each other. I initially intended to intervene, but their expressions suggested something was amiss, so I hesitated to approach. At that moment, peculiar sounds also arose from the courtyard below. Glancing outside, I was horrified to witness several individuals, much like my classmates, engaged in a relentless struggle, tearing at one another. Overcome by terror, I fainted. At merely 15 years of age, it is entirely understandable that Yichen, a boy, would succumb to fainting at the sight of his peers in such a maddened state. Even an adult, confronted with such a frenzied spectacle, would likely find it overwhelming. When I came to, it was already midday, and inexplicably, everyone had transformed into zombies. Fortunately, when I fainted, the glass door on the balcony was closed. Otherwise, my two classmates might have torn me to shreds. Thus, I remained trapped on the balcony, cold and famished. Particularly last night, I spent the entire night wide awake, fearing that if I succumbed to sleep, I might perish from the cold. Indeed, it is now January, the coldest time of the year. I cannot fathom the faith that sustained me through the long, dark night. Are you telling me that you have eaten nothing for over a day? Yichen inquired. Yichen chuckled softly, scratching his head. To be more precise, I last had a meal last year. Upon reflection, Yichen was not mistaken. The day before yesterday was indeed last year. Yichen promptly rose to fetch Yichen something warm to eat, ultimately resorting to preparing a bowl of instant noodles. In his search, he discovered that the thermos in the dormitory was not insulated, leaving the remaining water lukewarm. Instead, he decided to utilize a self-heating hot pot brought by Yichen, declaring today to be a celebratory feast. Indeed, saving a life is more meritorious than erecting a 7-story pagoda. Let us celebrate. Feng chimed in eagerly, nearly drooling at the prospect. Let us all partake of this tonight. You can eat on your own, Yichen retorted. I need to replenish my energy. Yichen promptly shoved Feng aside. Witnessing the enthusiasm of his peers, Yichen was overcome with emotion, lamenting that they could take his life at any moment. After nearly 2 days of hunger, Yichen devoured the self-heating hot pot with the fervor of Zhou Beiji consuming ginseng fruit, leaving not a drop of broth behind. Once Yichen was satiated, Yichen began to question him. So, you are suggesting that the zombies appeared suddenly, that certain individuals randomly transformed into them? Yichen contemplated for a moment and nodded gravely, affirming, yes, it was entirely random. One moment they were normal people, and the next, they had become zombies. You mentioned that your sister called you, which prompted you to rise. This implies that prior to your fainting, your phone indeed had signal and connectivity. Yichen continued to inquire whether your phone still had network access upon your awakening. After regaining consciousness, I discovered that my phone was devoid of any network connection. I cannot recall the state of my phone before I fainted. However, just minutes after my sister's call yesterday morning, the zombies appeared. I surmised that it was at that moment that the mobile network signal was also lost. Yichen calculated the approximate duration of Yichen's unconsciousness and the time at which he checked his phone, finding them to align perfectly. Thus, it appears that the emergence of the zombies was a sudden occurrence, coinciding with the loss of signal on my phone. Beyond that, I am uncertain. Observing Yichen's evident fatigue, Yichen refrained from further questioning, advising him to rest and recuperate. During Yichen's slumber, a profound silence enveloped everyone, as they collectively awaited the dawn, hoping for salvation. To ensure he could vigilantly guard through the night, Yichen also indulged in a brief rest. Upon awakening, he found the sun setting on the horizon. Yichen remained asleep, and the others made a concerted effort not to disturb him. After sharing some food, they quietly prepared for bed. Feng perused previously downloaded ebooks on his phone, while Yichen watched films stored on her computer. The zombies began to stir once more, their heavy footsteps echoing from below, while those in the corridor emitted growls, occasionally colliding with the doors of the dormitories. There must still be living souls within those rooms. Yichen took a moment to observe the female dormitory, which had fallen eerily silent, devoid of any sound. As night descended, the campus was engulfed in darkness due to the power outage, rendering visibility nearly impossible. This night bore neither stars nor moon. Only the chilling howls of the wind and the distant roars of zombies, their sounds seeming to whisper directly into one's ear. Chapter 11, Brother Chun. I will listen to you for Yichen. This night stretched interminably, as if a ferocious beast lurked within the shadows, poised to strike at any moment. Feng and Yichen appeared to be sleeping uneasily, as Yichen heard them turning restlessly and murmuring in their dreams on several occasions. Only Yichen slept soundly, his breathing steady and serene. January 3rd, 2022, marked the third day since the zombies had appeared, unfolding amidst the collective unease and anticipation of the group. As dawn broke, Zhou, Feng, and Yichen rose simultaneously, donning their clothes before taking their positions on the balcony, their gazes fixed towards the school gate. Despite their silence, Yichen understood they were yearning for the return of someone bearing good news. Even if someone were to return, it was unlikely anyone would arrive this early. The earliest would be midday. Yichen reassured them, stating he would rest and requested to be alerted should anything arise. He returned to his bed, striving to force himself not to contemplate the future. Soon, he drifted into slumber. Awakening from slumber, it was already past 2 in the afternoon, and an eerie silence enveloped the dormitory. Yichen and Yichen wore furrowed brows, seated at the edge of their beds, their gazes vacant. Meanwhile, Zhou Feng stood on the balcony, eagerly awaiting, maintaining the same posture he had before Yichen drifted into sleep, seemingly frozen in time. Yichen had come to grasp the situation. He understood that the expected return of others had not materialized. His mind immediately began to strategize on how to survive independently in the days to come. No longer could they rely on external assistance. Everything now hinged upon their own efforts. He scanned the dormitory, weighing the value and utility of their possessions, contemplating what each of the 4 could contribute to sustain their collective survival. Indeed, from that moment forth, they were no longer individuals, but a cohesive team. Observing the disappointment etched on their faces, Yichen hesitated to reveal that their future depended solely on themselves. After all, just 3 days prior, they were carefree youths, with parents and teachers shouldering their burdens. To put it bluntly, they were flowers nurtured in a greenhouse. Now, they were abruptly thrust into the harsh reality of independence, possibly devoid of family and friends, and with their own lives hanging by a thread. Each day ahead would demand that they toil for a morsel of food, a sip of water, a sound sleep, and to extend their existence by merely 1 more hour. Did they truly possess the courage to confront such a life? Yichen was uncertain. Yet, he was determined to exert every effort to ensure that they not only survived but thrived in good spirits. Zhou Feng, come inside and rest for a while. It's still early. Perhaps everyone will return later today, Yichen uttered, daring not to meet their eyes. Only Yichen seemed to place faith in Yichen's words, affirming, indeed, it is New Year's Day. It is entirely reasonable for everyone to wish to linger at home a bit longer. Slowly, Zhou Feng trudged back indoors, his disappointment unmistakable, mirrored by Yichen's expression. Silence enveloped them like a still lake, drowning the 4 in despair. As the clock struck 6:30, the time for evening self-study arrived, yet no one had returned. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the campus was once again besieged by the undead, drawn to any sound. I wonder how things are at home, Yichen murmured. And my sister? Thus, the entire city must have succumbed, Zhou Feng queried. Perhaps not just the city, but the entire province, or rather, the whole nation. Even the world has fallen, Yichen replied. Their hearts sank to the depths of despair, enveloped by a profound sense of isolation and fear. To make matters worse, the water supply was suddenly cut off. Although Yichen had diligently filled every available container with water upon waking each day, water was an indispensable resource. Even if the 4 of them refrained from washing their faces or brushing their teeth, those supplies would last at most a week. Furthermore, their food supplies were woefully inadequate. Especially with Yichen's burgeoning appetite, the meager provisions they had would barely last 3 to 5 days. Regardless of the circumstances, within a span of 3 to 5 days, the 4 of them would inevitably face the dire concern of procuring sustenance. Until now, they had clung to the hope that someone would come to their rescue. For schools are typically prioritized during significant calamities. However, 3 days had elapsed, and during this time, not only had there been no signs of rescue, but they had not even encountered a single living soul from the outside. It was evident that self-rescue was their only path to survival. Otherwise, they would be met with an inescapable demise. The zombies in the corridor began to stir once more, colliding against the dormitory door with a resounding thud that drained the color from Yichen's face. Faintly, they could hear desperate cries, likely from a dormitory above that had finally succumbed to the onslaught of the undead. Yet, moments later, the cries faded into silence, leaving uncertainty about whether the occupants had been saved by others or fallen victim to the jaws of the zombies. Observing the unease among his companions, Yichen recognized the need for a steadfast leader, someone to provide guidance in this tumultuous time. Although they had not voiced it openly, he sensed that his peers held a profound trust in him. Every word he spoke was heeded without question. Given the gravity of their situation, he asserted, "We must not surrender to despair." Clearing his throat, he spoke in a measured tone. As we have witnessed over these past few days, awaiting salvation from others is futile. Our only recourse now lies in self-rescue. But how do we go about this? Zhou Feng inquired. We must devise ways to survive and thrive, Yichen replied. If we lack water, we must seek it. If food is scarce, we must find nourishment. Above all, we must not relinquish our lives easily. We remain unaware of the fate of our loved ones. If we can save ourselves, we may yet reunite with them and perhaps even rescue them. Brother Chun, what should we do? I will follow your lead. Yichen said, rubbing his hands together as he leaned closer to Yichen. I witnessed your courage in saving Yichen yesterday. You are capable and intelligent. My life is yours to command, and old Zhou's life too. Though he may not be as physically adept as I, his mind is even simpler, so please be gentle. Feng interjected, Brother Chun. We have known each other for quite some time. I have always been your loyal subordinate. The future rests on your shoulders. If you say to head east, I shall not waver west. Seeing the two express their support, Yichen quickly added, Brother Chun, I stand with you as well. Good, Yichen replied. Since everyone is willing to follow my lead, I shall share my current thoughts. Rising to his feet, an aura of confidence and strength emanated from him, instilling a profound sense of reassurance in the remaining three. After observing for the past 2 days, I have discerned that these zombies exhibit a marked decrease in activity during sunny daylight hours, unless provoked by significant stimuli such as loud noises or the scent of blood. This leads me to ponder that, should our food supplies dwindle, we might employ a tactic of diversion on sunny days. Descending from the balcony via a rope to venture out to the nearby convenience store in search of sustenance. Chapter 12. 3 days of terror. Upon hearing Yichen's intention to seek food, the expressions of everyone shifted dramatically. Although they verbally accepted Yichen's proposed self-rescue plan, it did not include leaving the safety of their dormitory. From their vantage point on the balcony, they had gleaned sufficient information about the outside world. This dormitory had become their sanctuary, and no one wished to abandon it in pursuit of food. The mere thought of venturing outside caused Yichen to tremble. He had slept soundly the previous night, and after that harrowing evening on the balcony, he felt an unprecedented sense of security, even regarding room 214 as his fortress. However, Yichen's sudden suggestion to forage for food shattered that illusion. Sensing the group's unease, Yichen understood that this matter required a gradual approach. He reassured them, stating that this was merely a preliminary plan, and they would refine it as needed. For the time being, their food supply was sufficient for several days, so there was no immediate cause for concern. He would continue to observe the situation for a few more days. A collective sigh of relief swept through the group. Ultimately, when food supplies ran low, a sense of urgency would naturally prompt them to seek provisions outside, a fact Yichen did not fret over. Acceptance would take time. Not everyone could attain clarity right away. In the darkness, they shared a meager meal before hastily retiring for the night, in stark contrast to the tranquility of room 214. The other dormitories housing the living were far less composed. Many clung to the hope that someone would return to rescue them, but as night fell completely, the imagined rescuers failed to materialize, and panic set in. The outside world was undoubtedly far worse. They were doomed, utterly doomed. Who has food? I haven't eaten in 2 days. I haven't had a meal in 3 days. Is there anyone to save me? There are several zombies at my door, and it can barely hold. Amidst these cries, some individuals even flung open their doors and charged into the corridor to confront the zombies, but soon fell silent, likely joining the ranks of the undead. These sounds sent waves of anxiety through all in room 214. The most terrifying moment came when they heard a sudden scream from a neighboring dormitory, followed by someone leaping from the second floor. Unlike the fortunate individual who had previously jumped, this person did not meet an immediate demise. Instead, their agonized groans and curses echoed through the air, eventually descending into desperate pleas for help. Yichen was acutely aware of the reason for his desperate plea for help. He was besieged by the zombies below, and before he could even succumb to death, they began to feast upon him. He could distinctly hear the sickening sounds of his bones being shattered and chewed, and the tearing of his flesh. This torment was relentless. What kind of pain and despair must one endure to call out for salvation while teetering on the brink of death? The atmosphere in the dormitory had grown palpably tense, and Yichen recognized the necessity of calming everyone's frayed nerves. Thus, he declared, "You will never find yourselves in such a plight, nor will you ever act in such a manner. I have vowed to ensure your survival, and I shall fulfill that promise. Rest easy, for we shall confront any danger when it arrives." No sooner had his words faded than a collective sigh of relief echoed through the room. The following morning, the events of the previous night were conspicuously absent from conversation. The courtyard below was pristine, with no trace of the blood and remnants of bodies, all devoured by the zombies. However, the stench of decay had intensified in the air. From that day forth, Yichen meticulously rationed the food and water, dividing it into equal portions. To delay their search for sustenance, each person received just enough to stave off starvation, though it was insufficient to satiate their hunger. Even so, After 3 or 4 days, it became painfully evident that if they did not venture out for food, they would indeed perish within those walls. During this time, countless harrowing incidents unfolded within the male dormitory. Almost daily, someone would madly dash out of the dormitory, succumbing to the zombies' relentless assault. Others would curse and weep within the confines, only to be swiftly met with death as the zombies breached the door. Most astonishing was an afternoon when a cacophony of shouts and clashes erupted in the third-floor corridor. Moments later, the cacophony descended the staircase, and a dormitory near the stairs opened its door, adding to the uproar. Soon, 6 individuals burst forth from the dormitory, all clad in heavy clothing. Their sleeves and pant legs secured with tape, reminiscent of the former dormitory supervisor. Yet, they wielded only small fruit knives or slender steel pipes taken from the bunk beds, charging at the zombies with fervent thrusts that, in truth, inflicted negligible harm. "Charge, comrades! The convenience store lies just outside, with food and drink aplenty," the leader bellowed. The 5 following him were emboldened, brandishing their makeshift weapons with vigor. On the seldom occupied balcony, many peered out, their eyes glimmering with envy. After all, they might truly succeed in breaking free. If they reached the convenience store, their prospects for survival would be considerably brighter than languishing within the dormitory. The members of room 214 also observed from the balcony, and Feng could not resist suggesting, "Chenggu, shall we join them in their charge? There is strength in numbers, and their combat prowess appears quite formidable." Yichen decisively cast a veto, deeming their approach imprudent, asserting that they would not conserve their strength and would soon exhaust themselves. Furthermore, he expressed skepticism about their strategic acumen. With a sigh of regret, he lamented the situation. Indeed, shortly after Yichen's words, Feng observed that the group was gradually succumbing to fatigue. However, they had not yet even exited the courtyard of the male dormitory, let alone reached the convenience store situated between the male and female dormitories. Outside the courtyard, the zombies, alerted by the commotion, began to encircle them. "Retreat! Quickly! Return the way you came!" Feng could not help but shout. The individuals downstairs looked up at Feng with grateful expressions, acknowledging the hopelessness of their situation with a wry smile. It was at that moment everyone realized that nearly all of them bore injuries. Their clothes were in tatters, torn by the zombies, revealing skin marked with scratches and bite marks. Even if they could manage to return to the dormitory now, they would be unable to escape the fate of infection. Before long, the 6 individuals were overwhelmed by the horde of zombies, unable to bear the sight any longer. Yichen left the balcony, followed by Feng and the others, who entered the dormitory with heavy hearts. "Do any of you have thoughts to share about what just transpired?" Yichen surveyed the room before taking a seat on a chair. He aimed to mitigate the lingering shadows of despair and encourage everyone to embrace life with vigor. "If you remain silent, allow me to share my observations from earlier." Yichen straightened his posture, embodying the demeanor of a leader. The 6 individuals, had they been adequately prepared and coordinated, could have feasibly made a successful escape. Chapter 13. The plan. I trust you noticed that they created quite a ruckus while attempting to exit the building. Zombies are inherently sensitive to sound, and their blatant disregard for stealth was their first error, Yichen analyzed. This reaction is somewhat understandable, as many were paralyzed by fear at that moment. Shouting can serve as a means of bolstering one's courage. Their second mistake lay in their complete lack of contemplation regarding how to confront the zombies. Their approach to dealing with the zombies downstairs resembled typical brawling with others, oblivious to the fact that zombies are an entirely different species. A human may feel pain from a punch and might even lose consciousness. Yet, a zombie, regardless of how much force you exert, may remain entirely oblivious to your efforts. Indeed, Feng interjected, "I observed one individual trying to stab a zombie in the chest with a fruit knife, nearly turning it into a sieve. And yet the creature did not retreat an inch." Yichen nodded thoughtfully and continued, explaining that the most effective method for dealing with zombies is to incapacitate them by destroying their brains. Surely, everyone has watched zombie films. In these narratives, characters often eliminate zombies by severing their heads or delivering a precise shot to their skulls. However, even if a head is decapitated, the remnants may still exhibit movement and retain their capacity to bite. Only by completely obliterating the brain can a zombie be deemed utterly vanquished. "But Chenggu, we cannot possibly blow off a zombie's head. We lack firearms, and the skulls of these creatures are exceedingly resilient," Yichen interjected, voicing a concern. "The most vulnerable point of the skull lies at the ocular region. By penetrating the eye socket with a sharp object, one can directly damage the zombie's brain, which is not only convenient, but also requires minimal effort and no heavy weaponry. A dagger, a piece of rebar, or a sturdy, pointed wooden stick will suffice." Yichen's gaze lingered on Feng's bunk bed, where a nearly broken steel pipe appeared to be an ideal choice. Its thickness and length were just right, and the sharp edge was a veritable weapon. All eyes shifted to Zhou Feng's bunk, glimmers of desire evident in their expressions. Suddenly, Zhou Feng lunged at the bed, exclaiming, "No, you cannot have my bed." One hand swiftly broke off the steel pipe. "Hee, this one is mine," he declared, cradling the severed pipe and pretending to kiss it. Their third mistake was miscalculating the timing of their venture. Yichen continued his analysis. "Over the past few days, we have all noticed that during the midday hours, when the sun is at its zenith, zombie activity is at its lowest. Just yesterday, I even tossed a soda can into the courtyard at noon. 5 zombies lurking near the wall all sensed the noise. 3 merely twisted their bodies without taking further action, while 2 approached the can. Yet, only 1 truly reached near the can, while the other returned to the shadows after a few tentative steps. If they had chosen to rush out at noon today, they would not have had to face such a horde of zombies, perhaps even finding a glimmer of hope. It is puzzling that they did not observe this pattern over the past few days. Had they avoided these 3 errors, I believe they might now be comfortably seated in the convenience store, savoring their desired treats." Yichen finished his analysis in one breath, falling silent thereafter. It was evident that his deductions deeply impressed Zhou Feng and the others, making them realize that venturing out for supplies was not as terrifying as they had imagined. With a bit of ingenuity, even daunting tasks could become manageable. "Then, Chenggu, I believe that with meticulous planning, we should be able to reach the convenience store safely," Zhou Feng said, clutching the steel pipe with newfound confidence. "Indeed, we possess intellect and synergy. Our chances of success are undoubtedly 100%, Yichen concurred. Several individuals were brimming with enthusiasm, no longer quaking at the mere mention of venturing out to procure sustenance. Yichen sensed it was time to unveil his plan, seizing the moment to articulate his strategy for foraging for food. "Our provisions can only last for another 3 days, hence I believe it is time to seek nourishment. My proposal is for all 4 of us to relocate. We cannot remain in the dormitory any longer. The water situation here is quite inconvenient, and it is implausible to find water outside and laboriously transport it upstairs. Moreover, the dormitory door has been precariously unstable these past few days, rendering it unsuitable for defense." "Take a look at this," Yichen said, producing a sketch of the school's layout he had drawn from memory over the past few days. "After we lower a rope from the dormitory, we will charge straight out of the courtyard towards the convenience store. If we encounter danger along the way, we can take refuge in that abandoned phone booth. Although it is made of glass, it is constructed with sturdy shatterproof glass. Once the door is shut, it will be quite some time before any zombies can breach it, allowing us to devise our next course of action. There is an old, abandoned phone booth on the path from the boys' dormitory to the convenience store. Nowadays, with everyone owning a mobile phone, no one utilizes payphones anymore. If our journey proceeds without hindrance, we may encounter 3 possible scenarios upon reaching the convenience store. First, we may find the door locked. Second, we may enter, only to discover the store overrun by zombies." Zhou Feng interjected quickly. "What is the third scenario, Chenggu?" "The third possibility is that luck is on our side. The door opens, and the store is devoid of zombies. In that case, the convenience store will become our new stronghold. However, we must brace ourselves for the likelihood of the first scenario, as it is quite probable that the store's personnel locked up and returned home for the New Year's holiday a few days ago," Yichen elaborated. At that moment, Yichen, who had been silent until then, suddenly spoke up. "Chenggu, I can resolve the first issue. As a child, my favorite pastime was picking locks, so I have honed my skills. Unless it is an exceedingly complex security door, I can open nearly any lock available on the market within a minute." Instantly, the others regarded Yichen with newfound respect. "Good lad. It seems that saving you that day was not in vain," Yichen remarked, patting Yichen on the shoulder. Yichen, too, displayed a rare expression of approval, since Yichen could tackle the lock issue. The most formidable challenge we faced would be what to do if the convenience store was indeed overrun by zombies. Yichen's finger traced the hand-drawn map, gradually moving from the store's position forward. "Surely, we cannot be that unfortunate?" Zhou Feng queried. "This is not merely a matter of luck. It is a question of probability. We may encounter such a situation, thus we must contemplate solutions rather than gamble with our lives on mere chance. Of course, I sincerely wish that my contingency plan proves unnecessary. Nevertheless, we cannot afford to be left without an escape route." Chapter 14. Awaiting signals. By Yichen's fingers slowly glided over the 4 characters spelling out girls' dormitory. "Zhou Feng, do you recall what we discussed on the first day?" "As I ponder the first day, I recall with enthusiasm how you, Chenggu, remarked that the essence of girls is akin to that of hamsters." Zhou Feng nearly leaped with excitement, suggesting that we should head to the girls' dormitory. "Indeed, our primary objective for this outing is the convenience store. Should we encounter a second scenario at the store, there is no need to deliberate. We shall proceed directly to the girls' dormitory." It is highly likely that there will be food there. What Yichen did not express was that even if the second scenario were eliminated, his desire to visit the girls' dormitory remained strong, as he was deeply concerned for the class representative, Yi Ming. Such a kind-hearted individual. Yichen could not shake the feeling that she might be in danger. He yearned to rescue her. Well, Chenggu, what if we cannot gain entry into the girls' dormitory? Yichen inquired. Adjacent to the girls' dormitory lies an academic building, and beyond that, the school cafeteria. If we are thwarted there, we could always retreat to the staff quarters behind the cafeteria. If all else fails, we can leave the school altogether. Fear not, where their SA will. Their SA way. I will do everything in my power to ensure everyone has safety. Yichen rolled up the hand-drawn map and continued. Now that we have mastered the art of dealing with zombies and learned how to avoid attracting their attention, any place we can secure will serve as our stronghold. There is nothing to worry about. Indeed, Yichen concurred. Considering that in a few days, the dormitory will be cut off from water and food. Does it truly matter where we are? Taking a risk might transform our bicycles into motorcycles. Exactly. If worst comes to worst, we can head to my house. The villa is more than spacious enough for us. Feng added. I recall that a few years back, my father became infatuated with apocalyptic theories and stockpiled a great deal of compressed food and canned goods in the basement. I've heard those provisions have a shelf life of several years. We could reside in the villa, feasting and waiting for humanity to triumph over the zombies and receive rescue. As Feng spoke, he clutched a steel pipe tightly. Yichen shot him a disdainful glance. The compressed food and canned goods you speak of have a shelf life starting from 10 years. You wealthy individuals are truly capricious. Over the past few days, Yichen had come to realize just how extravagant Feng and Yichen were. Yichen casually gifted a pair of limited edition sneakers without a second thought, while Feng's multi-level villa remained unoccupied, complete with a live-in housekeeper to maintain the furniture and appliances. However, Feng's words ignited a new idea in Yichen's mind. Within the confines of the school, neither the convenience store nor the girls' dormitory offered a sustainable solution. Feng's home, on the other hand, possessed excellent conditions for long-term refuge. Firstly, the villa area is sparsely populated, which implies that zombies would not be concentrated there. Secondly, Feng's family has ample food supplies, which would alleviate many concerns. Even if they needed to venture out for sustenance, a nearby residential area features a large shopping mall and center, providing convenience. Furthermore, the villa is situated just a few kilometers from the school, making the journey manageable. Of course, all these thoughts hinge on taking the first step. Regardless, the immediate priority is to vacate the dormitory building. Brother Chun, I have now comprehended the path to our successful escape. We must remain discreet. Regardless of the circumstances we encounter, we must not bellow like that group from today, as it would merely beckon the zombies to hasten their approach. As if announcing a feast. Should we confront the undead directly, we ought to strike at their eye sockets. If we find ourselves outmatched, our best course is to flee, never to engage in a futile struggle. We must seek refuge and adapt to the situation, summarized Feng. At last, you have grasped the essence. Yichen displayed a paternal expression, which Feng feigned not to notice. Shall we commence our endeavor at noon tomorrow? I can no longer endure such meager sustenance daily. Yichen, eager and restless, lingered longingly on Feng's bunk. Not necessarily at noon tomorrow, Yichen replied with a shake of his head. Then, how about the day after tomorrow? Feng probed. Yichen continued to shake his head. What of the day after that? I fear I may perish from hunger by then. Brother Chun, can you bear to see me starve? I implore you, lead us forth. Yichen abruptly clung to Yichen's leg. Just days ago, these individuals were desperately avoiding the notion of leaving the dormitory. And now they clamored to venture out for a grand undertaking. It should be tomorrow, but the exact time remains uncertain. As long as you are prepared, we shall depart when the moment arises, Yichen responded. I would also like to inquire if there are others in the dormitory willing to join us. I suspect many have run low on provisions. I observed a group of onlookers earlier, approximately 10 of them. I recall there being over 20 that day. Why bother with them? Feng expressed his displeasure, questioning who still cared for others at this point. I am not insisting. When the time comes, I shall call out. And those willing to leave shall accompany us. Having said this, Yichen stepped onto the balcony and shouted, surviving classmates, we intend to leave the dormitory soon. We have 4 capable individuals here, and if any of you wish to join us, you are welcome. I will announce it again when we depart. So be prepared to set forth at any moment. At his call, the zombies below went into a frenzy, spinning in circles, desperately seeking the source of the sound. Howling in frustration, Yichen did not linger for responses and returned to the dormitory. Brother Chun, when are we truly departing? Please give me a definitive answer. Feng's impatience was palpable. Just wait, Yichen replied. Wait for what? For the signal. What signal? The signal from above. Feng was utterly perplexed and ceased his inquiries. Nevertheless, everyone busily packed their belongings overnight, and apart from Yichen. Another had taken a steel pipe from Zhou Feng's bunk, intentionally sharpening one end to a fine point. Yichen longed to inform them that the individuals in the courtyard below had abandoned so many items that selecting one would be far less laborious than crafting their own. Yet, seeing their enthusiasm as they compared whose was superior and sharper, even naming their steel pipes, he abandoned the thought of disclosing this to them. As long as they are content. The following morning, Yichen awoke early and ventured to the balcony for a glance at the sky, which appeared overcast and dreary, indicating that sunlight would be scarce that day. After a week of unbroken sunshine, the weather was finally showing signs of change. Satisfied, Yichen returned to the dormitory to distribute food among his companions. Zhou Feng, emulating Yichen, joined him at the balcony, and upon returning with a frown, lamented that the clouds suggested impending rain, perhaps lasting for several days, a sign that fate was against them. Yichen paid him no heed, handing out the portions he had prepared. Upon receiving their meals, the others quickly noticed something amiss. The portions were more than double the usual amount. Brother Chun, are we no longer planning to survive? He Yichen inquired, eyeing the luncheon meat in his hands hesitantly, despite having longed for it. This is the last of our provisions. We must eat well if we are to muster the strength for our departure. Yichen replied, munching away while observing the darkening sky, where clouds loomed like spilled ink, threatening to unleash their contents. Heaven is signaling us, Yichen murmured. The others were bewildered by his words. The absence of sunlight meant they had lost their opportunity to depart at noon. Why was Yichen still in high spirits? Had he perhaps made contact with some aerial rescue team? What other signal could he be awaiting? As they pondered, they consumed the food until they were sated, each leaning against the windowsill in a state of ennui. Outside, a gentle patter of rain began to fall, prompting Yichen to spring into action, urging everyone to prepare their belongings, and instructing Yichen to secure the ropes in readiness for their departure. At that moment, the light rain intensified. Yichen rummaged through the cabinet to find the raincoats distributed during the New Year's celebration, discovering 4 in total. After donning them, he stepped onto the balcony and announced, "We shall depart in 10 minutes. Those wishing to join us, please make your preparations." He then glanced down into the courtyard, where a few steel pipes and a dagger lay ominously in the rain-soaked ground. "I shall provide suitable weapons for everyone," he added. Silence followed, but a few heads poked out from the balcony above, their expressions icy and seemingly mocking. The 10 minutes swiftly elapsed. Yet not a single soul from the other dormitories showed willingness to leave, even as some had already run out of water and food, still clinging to the hope of salvation. "Let us not dwell any longer," Yichen urged, taking the initiative to grasp the rope and slide down. "Brother Chun, why don't we wait for the weather to clear before we leave?" Zhou Feng voiced his reluctance to depart from the dormitory. "This weather is more suited for our escape, and besides, we have finished the food." Without further ado, Yichen slid down to the courtyard below. After surveying his surroundings, he selected a steel pipe of the perfect length and sharpness for his own use, and picked up the dagger, wiping it on his clothing before stowing it in his backpack. He then gestured upwards, signaling for everyone to descend. As Yichen caught sight of Yichen's gesture, he did not even grasp the rope, swiftly descending the drainage pipe along the outer wall until he reached the ground, making not a sound. Yichen couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. Following him was Yichen, who, despite appearing rather timid, slid down without a furrowed brow. In contrast, Zhou Feng took an eternity to stealthily make his way down, and upon landing, began to glance around nervously, resembling a thief. "Stop looking. The sound of the rain disrupts the zombies' hearing, making it far less likely for them to detect us," Yichen remarked. At that moment, the others realized why Yichen had chosen to lead them away on a rainy day. The cover provided by the rain was infinitely superior to that of the sun. Once Yichen retracted the rope, Yichen took the lead, followed closely by Zhou Feng in second place, Yichen trailing behind, and Yichen bringing up the rear. Each of them grasped a steel pipe as they made their way towards the gate of the courtyard. "Brother Chun, how about we give our team a name? I propose the Apocalypse Steel Pipe Escape Squad. What do you think?" Zhou Feng whispered as he cautiously moved forward. "You shall be the captain of our escape squad, and I will be the vice captain, and we shall look after the other two." Yichen chose to ignore Zhou Feng. As they exited the courtyard, he couldn't resist a glance back. On the dormitory building, more than 10 figures were visible. Numerous pairs of eyes peered down from the balcony, silently observing their departure through the rain. Reflecting on the fact that there had originally been over 20 people, he pondered why so many had vanished over the past days. He understood all too well. He had offered them the chance to leave together today, yet they had failed to seize it, and that was not his fault. On the second-floor balcony, a rigid body stood at room 216. It was the dormitory supervisor, now transformed into an infected, eternally confined to the balcony of room 216. Who could have imagined that the place others had once desperately sought to enter had now become their prison? The glass of the reception room still bore the bloody handprints of the two boys who had met with tragedy, starkly visible, leaving one to wonder when those marks would fade. As they stepped out of the boys' dormitory courtyard, Yichen felt his nerves tighten. After all, the conditions in the courtyard had been nearly transparent from the balcony, but he was utterly oblivious to what lay beyond. The straight tree-lined path outside the dormitory was bare of leaves in winter, allowing an unobstructed view of the distant abandoned phone booth and the corner of a small shop, as well as a dozen zombies scattered beneath the trees. Yichen couldn't help but gasp at the sight. They needed to reach the small shop, and this tree-lined path was unavoidable. Could they truly pass by these dozen zombies without alerting them? Behind him, Yichen and the others could not help but halt in their tracks, while Feng tugged at Yichen's raincoat. Brother Chun, our apocalypse steel pipe escape squad can't face annihilation after just a few steps, can we? No worries. Yichen suppressed his inner unease and softly reassured Feng. With the sound of rain as a cover, we merely need to proceed quietly. Should we encounter any situation, we must strive to minimize our noise to avoid being besieged by a horde of over a dozen zombies. Given our current equipment, we can certainly handle an assault from 3 or 4 zombies simultaneously. Remember, if we must engage, aim solely for the eye sockets. Upon seeing the 3 nod in understanding, Yichen continued onward. His hands gripped the steel pipe tightly, his eyes constantly scanning the surrounding environment, adopting a stance poised for an immediate attack as he briskly moved towards the telephone booth ahead. After taking a few dozen steps, they finally drew near the first zombie. Clad in the uniform of Ancheng No.1 High School, it was evidently a former classmate. This erstwhile peer now stood beneath a tree, eyes dull and gray, exuding a foul stench, in a state of dazed stupor. Yichen slowed his pace, striving to minimize any sound he made, lest he disturb the wandering spirit of his former classmate. This was the first time Feng and the others were so close to a zombie, and they collectively gasped in horror. Feng's grip on the steel pipe trembled slightly. Fortunately, this former classmate appeared rather dim-witted, allowing the group to pass unharmed. However, they soon faced a situation where every few steps, they encountered 1 or 2 zombies, and everyone remained on high alert. The group continued to tiptoe forward, gradually entering a stretch where zombies flanked them on both sides. Thankfully, the rain was loud enough that the zombies failed to notice their slow passage. As they neared the telephone booth, Yichen felt a surge of relief, knowing that just beyond the booth lay a convenience store. Yet, from the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a nearby zombie seemingly stirring. He quickly turned to investigate, and his heart sank in terror. The zombie they had previously left behind had somehow caught up with them, not in a frenzied pursuit, but rather trailing closely behind, step for step. Particularly concerning was Yichen at the back, who was oblivious to the 2 zombies nearly upon him. Yichen silently cursed his oversight. He had forgotten that while the rain masked their sounds, their proximity to the zombies rendered them almost within arm's reach, and the scent of living humans could not be concealed. It was likely that the zombies had not attacked immediately due to the long absence of bathing, their natural odor obscured by the stench, compounded by the rain washing over them, thus preventing the zombies from realizing they were alive. But now, with the zombie almost pressing against Yichen's back, it was only a matter of time before even the most masculine aura would be detected. At such close quarters, body heat and a pulsing heartbeat could not be hidden. Yichen signaled Feng to continue moving forward while he tightened his grip on the steel pipe and hastened to alert Yichen from behind. Feng naturally turned back to take a glance, and was immediately struck with terror, his face paling to a ghostly hue as he could not help but mutter a curse laden with expletives. Unconsciously, his pace quickened. Yichen, observing Yichen approaching, found Feng's sudden oddness peculiar. Instead of hastening his steps, he abruptly halted, opening his mouth to inquire what was amiss. At that moment, a zombie, trailing closely behind him, crashed into his back, mouth agape, ready to bite. Upon witnessing the sudden pallor on Yichen's face, Yichen instantly grasped the predicament. The only living entities outside of their quartet could only be the zombies. Quick-witted, Yichen crouched down just as the zombie lunged, narrowly avoiding its grasp. However, the zombie had now realized it was confronting a living person. It opened its foul, gaping mouth and let out a guttural roar, resuming its assault on Yichen. Although Yichen was agile in evasion, it was merely a reflex. As the zombie lunged again, he failed to raise the steel pipe in his hand for defense. Fortunately, Yichen arrived just in time, thrusting the steel pipe into the zombie's eye socket with precision. With a swift motion, the zombie collapsed, devoid of any signs of life. Yichen retracted the pipe and wiped it clean with a cloth he had prepared beforehand, urging Yichen to flee quickly. At that moment, the cacophony from the earlier zombies' roar stirred the scattered dozen or so zombies around them. who began to converge, threatening to encircle them. Quickly, to the phone booth. Yichen shouted, disregarding everything else as he urged everyone to hasten towards the abandoned telephone booth. Yichen, propelled by an adrenaline rush, surged ahead of the group. Just as they burst through the semi-encirclement, he reached the phone booth. Upon witnessing the scene inside, Yichen nearly wet himself in fright. Inside the dilapidated booth, a pale visage pressed against the glass, its eyes fixated on Yichen, long black hair cascading down, obscuring half of its body. Damn, Yichen yelled. There's a ghost here. Ghost's my foot. Open the door, we need to hide. Feng shouted as he rushed towards Yichen, his voice frantic. Hurry up. These ghastly things are about to grab my belt. There really is a ghost. Yichen exclaimed, hopping anxiously. Feng, upon arriving, was also taken aback but quickly regained composure, uncertainly calling out, Shuawei? Yichen followed closely, glancing at the pallid face within the booth, also uncertain, Yema? Soon after, Yichen joined them. Sister? At this juncture, the figure within the booth grew alarmed, yanking the door open. Is this the time for idle chatter? We cannot linger here. Run. In the rush, however, the figure stumbled and fell to the ground. Yichen, quick on his feet, rushed forward to catch her. My apologies, Bai. I haven't eaten in days, my legs are a bit weak. We truly cannot stay here. There are too many zombies around. Yimo weakly confessed. Understanding the urgency of the situation, Yichen swiftly hoisted Yimeng onto his shoulder and sprinted ahead. After a couple of strides, he turned back, urging the others. What are you all waiting for? Run. The group, filled with trepidation, dashed forward while a relentless horde of zombies pursued them. Their numbers continuously swelling as new ones joined the fray. Feng, terrified, cried out in panic, while Yichen had already vanished from sight. Come on, come on. Yichen had reached the entrance of the convenience store, gasping for breath and gesturing frantically. The door is open. Hurry up, everyone. Put in some effort. Her voice boomed, as if attempting to summon every zombie in the vicinity. Without waiting for the others to catch up, she dashed into the store, only to return moments later, flailing her arms and shouting, damn it, it's full of them. I've stumbled into a zombie nest. A swarm of zombies clad in school uniforms poured forth behind her, a sight as overwhelming as their morning exercises. Yichen scolded Yichen for her sheer foolishness, wondering why she hadn't first assessed the situation inside. Now, two hordes of zombies had converged, resembling a scene from Train to Busan. To the girls' dormitory, Yimeng urged from Yichen's shoulder. Exactly, he shouted, declaring Plan B. The group understood and made a beeline for the dormitory. As they approached the gates of the girls' dormitory, exhaustion weighed heavily on them. Yet the zombies showed no signs of fatigue, closing the gap with alarming speed. Realizing the dire need for a strategy, Yichen promptly set Yimeng down and pushed her forward, instructing, Yichen, take your sister and go. Feng, cover Yichen. Yichen, you and I will hold them off. With the plan laid out, they sprang into action. Yichen hoisted Yimeng onto his back, while Feng kept pace beside them toward the dormitory. Yichen and Yichen positioned themselves at the rear, wielding steel pipes against the first wave of pursuing zombies. Remember, aim for the eye sockets, and do not hesitate. Yichen commanded as he plunged the pipe into the eye of the first zombie to reach them. With a sickening thud, it collapsed. Another zombie surged forward, prompting Yichen to extract the pipe and strike again. With methodical precision, they dispatched the second zombie as well, as the third and fourth zombies lunged at them. Yichen acted without hesitation, joining Yichen in piercing their eye sockets. In a matter of moments, both foes fell. As the horde grew increasingly relentless, they repeated their actions, thrusting and withdrawing the steel pipes, while gradually retreating. Chapter 17. The class representative. Their movements grew more fluid, their coordination becoming instinctual. Any lapse by one was swiftly compensated by the other. Yichen, with her years of parkour experience, exhibited remarkable agility, enhancing their chances of survival. Yichen, a fitness enthusiast, possesses a formidable physical constitution, exhibiting both strength and remarkable endurance. The synergy between the two was nothing short of seamless. Just as their spirited engagement reached its peak, Feng had already arrived at the entrance of the girls' dormitory, beckoning Yichen and the others to retreat. After dispatching another zombie, Yichen and Yichen began their withdrawal, coinciding perfectly with the arrival of the pursuing horde. As Feng and his companions entered the iron gate of the courtyard, they were swiftly overtaken by Yichen and Yichen, with Yichen leading the charge, but remaining cautious not to stray too far from the main group. Enter the building on the left, ascend to the third floor. In the second dormitory on the right, I possess the key, Yimeng instructed, producing a key and tossing it to Yichen. Clearing the path ahead, Yichen and Yichen effortlessly eliminated any zombies they encountered. Feng, trailing behind, urged them to hurry, fearful of the advancing threat. The group soon reached the third floor, and upon turning into the corridor, Yichen discerned several indistinct figures moving ahead. He promptly gestured for silence, stealthily approaching the second dormitory's door, and used the key Yimeng provided to unlock it. To his astonishment, as the door swung open, a blunt object swung towards Yichen's head. He deftly sidestepped, but the weapon was raised again, poised to strike. "It's me," Yimeng suddenly exclaimed. A voice from within responded with surprise, retracting the weapon and extending a hand to pull Yichen inside. A girl peered out, calling out Yimeng's name, and the group filed in. Just as they secured the door, the sound of zombies crashing against it and their guttural growls echoed ominously. "Lock the door," Yichen commanded. Zhou, Feng, and Yichen, familiar with the surroundings, quickly moved tables to barricade the entrance. Yichen and Yimeng embraced, weeping profusely. Yichen instinctively surveyed the dormitory's interior, only to feel a sudden flush of embarrassment. While it was not unusual to encounter pink personal items in a girl's dormitory, his gaze fell upon a pair of pink panties adorned with peach prints hanging by the bed. Even a seasoned veteran might find such a sight somewhat disconcerting. At that moment, the girl who had aimed to strike Yichen glared at him, exclaiming, "Pervert!" Recognizing her as Lu Yuqing, the representative of their Chinese class. Yichen was taken aback by her unexpected fierceness, accentuated by her heavy makeup, a stark contrast to her usual bare-faced appearance. Did makeup truly bolster one's courage? However, recalling his earlier offense, he refrained from retorting, bowing his head apologetically. "I'm sorry, class representative." "Who are you calling class representative? Don't try to get friendly, you old pervert," she retorted, launching into another tirade. Aware of his transgression, Yichen remained silent, acknowledging his fault. Suddenly, he noticed another face emerging behind the class representative, identical to the one in front of him. "Yichen?" The second face inquired. Class representative?" Yichen could hardly believe his eyes. "You are Lu Yuqing. But who is she?" He gazed at the newly revealed face, bare-faced, with a heart-shaped visage, willow-like eyebrows, and hair cascading down to her waist. This was indeed the familiar appearance of Lu Yuqing, the literature class representative. But who was the person that had just scolded him? Lu Yuqing chuckled softly. "This is my twin sister, Lu Jiechi. Can't you tell she is wearing makeup and has short hair? When did you acquire a twin sister? I've never seen her before." Nevertheless, Yichen's confusion was finally resolved. It was only natural. How could the usually gentle and demure class representative have uttered such harsh words? "Jiechi studies in class 3, and those who know me well are aware that I have a twin sister. She often comes to our dormitory to visit," the class representative explained. Who would have thought that such a gentle person as the class representative has a sister so fierce? What a pity for such a beautiful face. Yichen muttered the last part under his breath, while Yichen was bewildered by the twin sisters on the other side. The Yi siblings had already begun to weep uncontrollably. "Big sister, I was so worried about you. I feared you would turn into a zombie," Yichen lamented. "Little brother, I was equally terrified that you might become a zombie," Yimeng echoed. "You have no idea how miserable I was, almost freezing to death on the balcony." Yichen cried. "Thank goodness Chungu risked his life to save me. Little brother, you can't imagine how wretched I was, nearly starving to death in that phone booth." Yimeng sobbed. "I owe my safety to the sound of the rain outside. Otherwise, our cries could have attracted a horde of zombies." The zombies that had been banging at the door earlier had now quieted down, but if one pressed an ear to the door, one could still hear the sounds of zombies shuffling in the corridor and their eerie clacking noises. Though these were meaningless utterances from the undead, they resonated in human ears as the most terrifying sounds imaginable. Yichen, concerned that the siblings might lose control of their emotions and attract the zombies, hurried over to calm them. He retrieved some food from his backpack and handed it to Yimeng. "Scholar, eat something first, though it may not be much. It will help replenish your strength." Zhou Feng interjected. "Chungu, didn't you say this morning's meal was our last food? If I hadn't claimed it was the last, would you have been so eager to follow me? I saved a little to ensure we wouldn't starve while looking for a place to hide if our trip to the convenience store failed. But that last bit truly was the end." "It's all right. We have plenty of food here." Lu Yuqing, the class representative, gestured to the ground beside them, where several large boxes were placed. The boys then noticed that these boxes were filled with self-heating rice, portable hot pots, instant noodles, spicy noodle packs, and various snacks. This, Zhou Feng stammered. "What is so surprising about this? What girl-less dormitory doesn't stash away some tasty treats?" Jiechi shot Zhou Feng a glance. Zhou Feng exchanged a knowing glance with Yichen, silently conveying that Chungu was indeed correct. The essence of girls resembled that of hamsters. "What about water? Do you have any?" Yichen promptly focused on the matter at hand. On the balcony, he observed Lu Jiechi continuing her straightforward demeanor. Yichen swiftly pushed open the door to the balcony, revealing several boxes of beverages lined up. accompanied by a few large basins filled with water. Even Yichen couldn't help but give them a thumbs up, not for any particular reason other than their spirit of indulgence. It seemed that the girls' dormitory was indeed a fine choice. It was far more comfortable than the convenience store, which could hardly offer such a warm and fragrant environment filled with the essence of femininity. Primarily, where else could one find such delightful girls? Though there was one girl who certainly possessed a formidable presence. Chapter 18. Not Yimeng, but foolish Ming. After consuming the scant food provided by Yichen, Yimeng found herself still unsatisfied and rummaged through the boxes to retrieve a small bon. As she munched on it, she recounted her recent tribulations. According to her, on the morning of January 1st, a box of small buns she had purchased had just arrived, and she intended to fill a large bag to deliver to Yichen. As she opened the door to leave, Lu Jiechi happened to pass by from the neighboring dormitory in search of her sister, Lu Yuqing. They exchanged a brief greeting before parting ways. Everything seemed normal as she exited the girls' dormitory, but upon nearing the convenience store, she witnessed a throng of people rushing out, shouting in panic. Initially, Yimeng dismissed it, assuming it was merely acquaintances engaging in playful antics. However, the sight that followed shattered her worldview entirely. She saw a classmate emerge from the convenience store, their face nearly hanging off, blood dripping profusely from their body. The true horror lay in the fact that the classmate's head had been severed at the neck, only a thin layer of skin holding it in place. In other words, a person on the verge of losing their head was somehow still able to walk. Yimeng was overwhelmed with terror and burst into tears. Yet, instead of retreating to the dormitory, her thoughts were consumed with the urgency to find Yichen and relay the dreadful news. Thus, she began to run, blending in with the crowd fleeing from the convenience store, heading to Brother Chun. I've consumed bread for 6 days. One can survive a day of hunger without succumbing. One merely feels a bit weak. Zhou Feng interjected to clarify, noting that the phone booth was entirely sealed, providing a considerable warmth. Unlike Yichen, who suffered in the open balcony, exposed to the wind from all angles. That is not my point, Yichen gestured dismissively. I am curious about how you survived these 7 days without water. Surely you did not. Surely you did not. Zhou Feng hesitated, reluctant to voice his thoughts. In such dire circumstances, what else could one resort to but drinking urine? This notion lingered in Zhou Feng's mind. To everyone's astonishment, Yimeng responded, I went to the convenience store and brought back several bottles of water. The crowd was left speechless. Zhou Feng exclaimed, impressive. So, you ventured to the convenience store for water and did not think to procure some food? Yichen could hardly believe this was the same astute class monitor. Had she lost her wits to the zombies? In the heat of the moment, I completely forgot, Yimeng admitted, scratching her head sheepishly. Please elaborate on how you managed to acquire the water. Yichen suspected that her ability to traverse to the convenience store amidst a horde of zombies must involve some remarkable tactic, one that he might benefit from in the future. With a look of indignation, Yimeng recounted, it was noon that day, and I noticed the creatures seemed lethargic. I took a chance and sprinted to the convenience store. The water was right at the entrance, so I grabbed a few bottles. I even saw the store owner sitting dejectedly on a stool. Thinking he was in trouble, I intended to comfort him, but as soon as he looked up, he tried to bite me. Terrified, I fled without paying, clutching the bottles of water. The group was left in stunned silence. Class monitor. May I inquire if you are aware that those creatures outside are called zombies? Yichen found himself at a loss for words regarding Yimeng's account. Even amidst such chaos, she still thought to pay for the water. Moreover, she believed the store owner was still alive despite the throngs of zombies surrounding him. What astonished Yichen most was her audacity to run over 20 meters to the convenience store and successfully retrieve the water. He couldn't help but envy her luck. I am not foolish. Jiaqian often visits our dormitory to show us zombie films, she retorted, as the senior class was a key focus. Each dorm was equipped with a computer for research, and Lu Jiaqian frequently borrowed access to watch zombie movies in Yimeng's dormitory. Yet, it was surprising that despite watching so many zombie films, Yimeng remained so naively endearing. Furthermore, she added that one day a zombie had attempted to pull open the door of the phone booth, nearly succeeding. Yichen explained that zombies could not open doors, yet Yimeng remained resolute in her beliefs. Ultimately, when she could not persuade Yichen, she shifted the topic. I think, class monitor, it would be more fitting to call her foolish Meng from now on. By the way, when you handed me the water earlier, I noticed a wound on your palm. Have you been scratched by a zombie? You won't bite us, will you? Yimeng inquired. On the day when I rescued your brother, I sustained an injury from a rope. It was nearly healed, but today, while carrying you, I inadvertently reopened the wound. Yichen was truly frightened by Yimeng's natural clumsiness. If I were to become a zombie, I would not recognize any of you. I would simply bite whoever crossed my path. In the future, if you encounter an acquaintance transformed into a zombie, do not harbor any false hopes. Just run. Sigh. I truly do not understand how someone so oblivious can achieve such excellent grades and even become the class representative. Upon realizing that Bai Yichen's wound was not inflicted by a zombie, Yiming hurried to fetch alcohol to disinfect it, carefully bandaging him afterward. Following that, she turned her attention to her little brother, listening to Yichen recount the despicable actions of the dorm supervisor, who nearly unlocked every dormitory door on the first floor with her key, resulting in many students falling victim to zombies. Yiming clenched her fists, her eyes brimming with tears. Bai Yichen and the others also learned of the supervisor's misdeeds during that time, and Yichen regretted that they had perished too swiftly. They should have been subjected to more torment. When Yichen narrated the actions of the female dorm supervisor, silence enveloped the room. Yichen recounted that after the outbreak of zombies, the dorm supervisor, disregarding her own safety, ascended from the first floor to the upper levels, urging every resident not to open their doors under any circumstances, to charge their phones, and to store water. When she reached our dormitory door, I opened it to let her in, but she insisted on notifying the other dorms and departed. Later, I saw her figure among the horde of zombies below. In this world, there are those who commit numerous evils, and there are those who are benevolent. Some betray the lives of others for their own selfish gain, while others are willing to sacrifice themselves to save a life. This has never been a world of black and white. Rather, it is one filled with kindness and light. Chapter 19. Change. The rain has ceased. The world has once again descended into silence. The occupants of room 302 dared not converse as freely as before, for the sounds of zombies in the corridor now dominated their existence. In silence, they shared a meager meal, the sky darkening as they approached the moment of deciding how to sleep for the night. The boys unanimously decided that the three girls and Yichen would sleep in the beds, while Bai Yichen, Zhou, Feng, and Yichen would take to the floor. Yichen inquired about the situation in the neighboring dormitory, receiving the response that it was empty, as everyone had left for the break. They promptly resolved to retrieve some bedding from the balcony for their makeshift sleeping arrangements. Originally, Bai Yichen had suggested that all the boys could cross to the neighboring dormitory via the balcony to sleep together, but Zhou Feng was too frightened to venture outside, and the girls expressed their trepidation about being alone at night. The boys remained behind to ensure everyone could sleep more soundly. Several girls watched in admiration as Yichen deftly navigated the balcony, effortlessly leaping from one side to the other. Had there not been zombies outside, they would have likely cheered. With the support of the girls, Yichen became even more spirited. Initially, Bai Yichen had offered to assist him on the balcony, promising to retrieve the items himself, but he insisted on managing it alone, allowing Bai Yichen to rest. After several trips back and forth, they managed to bring over the bedding from the adjacent dormitory. Not only that, but they also discovered a portable stove, which could be used to boil water or prepare some food. The girls did not disappoint Yichen, showering him with compliments. That night, Bai Yichen, Zhou Feng, and Yichen spread out the bedding on the floor to sleep. The girls' bedding was soft and fragrant, making for a most comfortable slumber. Zhou Feng and Yichen quickly succumbed to sleep, their snores filling the room, while Bai Yichen remained wide awake, pondering the events of the day. From the moment he had sprinted with Yiming in his arms at the phone booth, he sensed something was amiss. Though he often engaged in fitness, carrying a person over such a distance, and matching the pace of the unburdened Zhou Feng and Yichen, seemed rather implausible. While others gasped for breath after toting a living person for that long, he felt no strain at all. He even managed to join Yichen in dispatching a wave of zombies afterward. Upon entering dormitory 302, everyone was utterly fatigued, struggling to regain their composure. Yet, Bai Yichen merely felt a touch tired, as if he could still manage another round. Was there something amiss with his body? Why had such a significant change occurred in such a short span? He recalled how, prior to the new year, he had gone for a jog and returned utterly spent, needing over 10 minutes to recover. Yet today, he had run while carrying someone. Reflecting on the days prior when he had rescued Yichen, he marveled at the fact that he had been able to carry him while climbing a rope, something not typically achievable by an ordinary fitness enthusiast. A hypothesis began to form in Bai Yichen's mind. Perhaps the changes in this world extended beyond the mere emergence of zombies, hinting at something else quietly unfolding. With this thought, his inner perplexity found resolution, and he gradually succumbed to sleep. January 7th, 2022, marked the 7th day since the appearance of zombies. Bai Yichen finally departed from the boys' dormitory, only to find himself trapped in the girls' dormitory. On the morning of January 8th, 2022, the sky began to drizzle softly. The girls rose early, preparing food for everyone. After breakfast, concealed by the sound of the rain, they resumed their chatter, speculating about what the outside world might now resemble. Yichen remarked bluntly, "The whole world has succumbed. What else could happen?" Zhou Feng immediately countered, "How can you be so sure it's all fallen? Perhaps it's just like Ancheng here, or maybe rescue teams are already en route. Don't you watch the news?" Yichen pouted, Aren't you boys supposed to be concerned about national affairs? I heard on the news that several monkeys escaped from a virus lab in the beautiful country. And those monkeys carried pathogens. After some people came into contact with the monkeys, they started falling ill and biting others. I believe I have seen such news. Yichen chimed in. The beautiful country has always indulged in such chaotic research, dabbling in virus experiments. Zhou Feng's countenance suddenly darkened. The thought of global demise brought forth a haunting concern for his parents. The mere mention of family cast a pall over the group, plunging their spirits into despair. Yichen, apprehensive that the notion of lost kin might extinguish their will to live, swiftly redirected the conversation. In the company of adolescents, there exists an abundance of topics to explore. Yichen playfully teased Zhou Feng, inquiring about his ideal type of girl. Zhou Feng, unfazed by shyness, candidly expressed his preference for gentle souls, prompting a chorus of playful jeers from the group. Initially, the presence of boys in the girls' dormitory elicited some resistance. Yet as they settled in, a palpable sense of security enveloped the girls, transforming the atmosphere into one of warmth. Even the boisterous Yichen exhibited a sudden softness, her demeanor shifting to one of bashful gentility. As zombies occasionally rattled the dormitory doors in the corridor, the girls found themselves no longer gripped by the fear that had plagued them in previous days. After a brief period of idle chatter, Yichen proposed that they engage in daily physical exercise to prepare for the eventuality of needing to escape. He candidly conveyed that remaining in their current refuge was not a sustainable solution. Supplies of food and water would inevitably dwindle, leading to a life fraught with exhaustion. Without robust health, survival would be impossible. Seizing the opportunity of ample provisions, they could nourish themselves and build strength. He promised to teach them subtle exercises that would engage their entire bodies. The group earnestly followed Yichen's guidance, with Zhou Feng even declaring a friendly rivalry once they had honed their skills. Although Yichen and Yichen professed they would never abandon the dormitory, vowing to starve or leap from the balcony, they dedicated themselves wholeheartedly to their training. The past few days had been filled with fulfillment and joy, but such bliss was abruptly shattered by an unforeseen crisis. One morning, before dawn had broken, anguished cries echoed from below. Simultaneously, Yichen sensed an unusual heat emanating from the floor beneath him and sprang into action. The group was roused by the desperate calls for help, and upon testing the floor, they confirmed its alarming warmth. Yichen opened the balcony door to peer outside, only to be engulfed by a wave of acrid smoke. Grabbing a damp towel from the balcony, he covered his mouth and nose and ventured to look down. A fire had erupted in one of the dormitories below, and the flames were rapidly encroaching upon the third floor. Amidst the smoke, cries for help persisted, but their source remained indiscernible. Without hesitation, Yichen dashed back inside, securely closing the balcony door before shouting, "There's a fire. Everyone, keep it light and prepare to evacuate immediately." Chapter 20. Escape from the inferno. Through their shared experiences, even the girls had come to hold Yichen in high esteem, especially after he had rescued both Yichen and Yimeng. Consequently, they were inclined to heed his every word. Previously, Yichen had prepared them for the possibility of an imminent evacuation, thus each individual had packed an emergency escape backpack. In times of peril, they could simply don their escape bags and depart swiftly. Additionally, a collapsible bed had been assembled, equipping the girls with the same means of defense. Upon hearing Yichen urgently call for an immediate retreat, everyone promptly executed the prearranged plan. Grasping their rudimentary weapons and shouldering their escape packs, they burst forth from the dormitory in the formation devised by Yichen. Yichen swiftly dispatched 2 zombies, while Zhou Feng raised his steel pipe and eliminated another, beckoning the others to follow. With Yichen and Zhou Feng leading the charge, Yichen and Yichen brought up the rear. The girls nestled between the boys as they advanced towards the staircase. Upon reaching the stairway, they were met with a fierce gust of hot wind and dense smoke. The staircase was no longer passable. If they attempted to escape through it, they would likely succumb to the toxic fumes before the flames could claim them. In the chaos of a fire, the most perilous threat is often the toxic smoke, which many overlook, mistakenly believing that a damp cloth over the mouth and nose suffices. In the rear, Yichen, unaware of the stairwell's condition, shouted anxiously, "Hurry, hurry! A horde of zombies is approaching from the end of the corridor. Move quickly." In this critical moment, Yichen hesitated not an instant. He pivoted and forcefully kicked the door of the dormitory across the hall. Bang! The door flew open. Grasping his steel pipe, Yichen dashed inside, surveying the surroundings. This dormitory posed no immediate danger, save for a single zombie on the balcony, agitated by the sound of the door, relentlessly battering against it. Yichen approached and decisively flung open the balcony door, piercing the zombie's eye socket with his steel pipe. Peering over the balcony, he observed several dormitory balconies below, where smoke billowed forth. Yet the quantity was minimal and the heat was hardly perceptible. Yichen realized his suspicions were confirmed. The fire had ignited in the dormitory across the corridor and had yet to spread to their side. They still had a chance to escape. Quickly, everyone inside. Yichen called out, and Zhou Feng led the group into the room with haste. Zhou Feng, you and the others barricade the door. The lock is broken. Yichen, come here with the rope. Yichen rushed forward, the rope ready in her hands. The girls may be frightened. Tie a safety rope to give them some reassurance. I will descend first to clear the area, and you will lower the others down while covering our retreat. Is that acceptable? Don't worry, Chengge. It will be fine. Yichen, though she always sprinted away during perilous moments, would never be the first to flee when her comrades were in danger. After imparting his instructions, Yichen swiftly returned to assist Zhou Feng in barricading the door. At this moment, smoke was already seeping through the cracks, and the zombies at the end of the corridor were drawn by the commotion, beginning to batter against the door. The lock had completely failed, and the table could not hold. They needed to move the bed. Zhou Feng lamented. Chengge, if you hadn't acted so impulsively earlier, and let Yichen unlock the door for us, we wouldn't be in such a predicament now. Had Yichen waited to unlock the door, those who had fallen behind would likely have transformed into zombies by now, returning to repay you. Yichen, while speaking, stuffed a blanket into the door crack to prevent the smoke from infiltrating the room. Meanwhile, Yichen had prepared the ropes. Yichen instructed that once he cleared the area below, Yichen should follow him down, with Zhou Feng and Yichen bringing up the rear. This arrangement was primarily due to the concern that if Zhou Feng descended to assist in clearing the area, he would need to monitor the rope should anything occur upstairs, as Yichen's combat prowess was rather inadequate. As for which of the girls would descend first, they could decide among themselves. Once everything was arranged, Yichen took the lead, sliding down the rope directly into the courtyard of the female dormitory. Fortunately, the courtyard was not expansive, allowing him to quickly survey the surroundings for zombies. Distracted by the sounds of the fire, many zombies had automatically gravitated toward the front yard of the dormitory, significantly easing Yichen's workload and granting him valuable time. Armed with a steel pipe, Yichen swiftly eliminated all threatening zombies in the courtyard, then signaled to the upper floor, prompting Yichen to be secured with a safety rope and begin his descent. However, not everyone possessed Yichen's audacity and agility. As Yichen reached the second floor level, a zombie on the balcony seized his backpack, struggling to maneuver while suspended from the rope. Yichen found it impossible to draw the steel pipe to confront the zombie, resorting instead to thrashing his body in an attempt to dislodge the creature's grip. Unexpectedly, the rope swayed, causing the zombie to lose its hold, and Yichen plummeted downward, inadvertently dragging the zombie out from the balcony alongside him. While Yichen could initially maintain his grip on the rope, the sudden addition of the zombie's weight rendered him incapable of holding on any longer. Inevitably, he relinquished his grasp, plummeting from the second floor along with the zombie. Yichen couldn't help but curse internally as he watched Yichen become ensnared by another rope, spinning several times in the air before colliding with the wall. Thankfully, Yichen had previously insisted on adding an extra safety rope, which ultimately saved Yichen's life. The zombie fell to the ground below with a resounding thud, its skull crushed, yet astonishingly, it managed to rise and stagger toward Yichen. Yichen swiftly dealt the final blow, ending its existence. Yichen shouted from above, "You fool, are you testing my rope?" Yichen replied, "I'm feeling quite dizzy. Please help me." After Yichen safely landed on the ground, Yichen conducted a brief examination and found no injuries, not even a scratch. Following him was Yimeng, who, extremely worried about her brother's safety, rushed down and embraced Yichen, inspecting him closely. "Oh dear brother, were you frightened? Did you hurt yourself?" Yichen, disinterested in the siblings' display of affection, instructed Yichen to remain vigilant and observe the surroundings, as he intended to sneak out through the back gate of the courtyard to scout the situation outside. Exiting from the rear gate of the girls' dormitory, one finds a tranquil path flanked by trees. This secluded pathway leads directly to the diligent study lake of the school. Although referred to as a lake, it is essentially a larger pond, adorned with lotus flowers and inhabited by fish, and even features a small wooden boat gently floating upon its surface. Yichen stepped onto the path, immediately surveying his surroundings. Fortunately, there were few zombies in this vicinity. Only a handful could be seen scattered among the surrounding woods, likely having wandered here by accident and become lost. In winter, with the leaves having fallen, the view of the diligent study lake through the gaps in the trees appeared quite safe. Further in the distance, the cafeteria revealed a splash of red and yellow hues, resembling a platter of fresh and delectable dishes, enticing Yichen to indulge. Having familiarized himself with the area, Yichen promptly turned back. His thoughts were still occupied with Yichen, concerned that a zombie might unexpectedly emerge, potentially frightening the girls. Moreover, noticing the thickening smoke rising from the girls' dormitory, he quickened his pace. As anticipated, upon re-entering through the back gate, Yichen spotted a zombie staggering towards Yichen. At that moment, Yichen and Jiaqian had already descended, while Zhou Feng was halfway down the rope, leaving Yichen still above. Upon seeing the approaching zombie, Yixion's face paled, and she anxiously urged Zhou Feng, "Hurry up. The zombie is almost here." Despite her evident fear, she tightly gripped a steel pipe, shielding the three girls behind her while reassuring them, "It's all right. Feng will be down soon." As the zombie drew closer to Yichen, she continued to clutch the steel pipe tightly, but hesitated to strike. She retreated while calling for Zhou Feng to hurry. Yichen had originally intended to let Yichen face this challenge, but seeing the situation unfold, he could no longer remain an observer. Gripping the steel pipe, he prepared to rush forward. Just then, Yimeng, who had been hiding behind Yichen, suddenly leaped out, brandishing her steel pipe and thrusting it towards the zombie's head. Perhaps due to her lack of strength, the zombie remained unscathed despite the attack. Undeterred, Yimeng swiftly withdrew her pipe and struck again, this time piercing the zombie's head completely, causing it to sway before collapsing. Yimeng dropped the steel pipe and suddenly burst into tears, leaping onto Yichen for comfort. "Little brother, that was terrifying. I thought I was going to die," she sobbed. Yichen, taken aback, could only respond with silence. Zhou Feng, just having descended from the rope, remained speechless. Yichen, rushing forward with the steel pipe, exclaimed, "Sister, I was the one who got scared. Hurry down." Reluctantly, Yimeng released her grip on Yichen and, with a blank expression, picked up the fallen steel pipe, wiping it with a towel before stowing the towel into the side pocket of her backpack. Yichen descended from the rope and glanced at the lifeless corpse of a zombie on the ground, thoughtfully touching her head as if contemplating whether it could withstand a blow from Yimeng's steel pipe. "Chenggu, this is hardly the kind-hearted and gentle class representative you described. She is nothing short of a female ruffian," Yichen muttered. "I perceive her as quite benevolent. And her studies are satisfactory," Yichen replied. "Let us depart. This place is no longer safe, as the fire may attract numerous zombies." Just as he spoke, an explosion erupted from within the inferno, startling everyone with its resounding force. Zhou Feng couldn't help but give a thumbs up, exclaiming, "You girls in the dormitory certainly know how to have fun. How much TNT did you pack in there? Hurry." Yichen urged, "This is not the time for jest. The explosion may draw more zombies." Everyone quickly gathered their belongings and fell into the formation previously arranged, following Yichen. None knew what lay ahead, yet they were willing to place their trust in him, believing he could provide them with a sanctuary. As they exited through the back gate of the courtyard, Yichen immediately spotted several zombies approaching, likely lured by the recent explosion. Without a flinch, he assessed that these zombies posed little challenge for him. As long as he ensured they did not near the girls, they were hardly a threat, though the girls had only recently faced zombies up close. They remained protected in the center of the group and merely felt a wave of anxiety upon seeing the creatures, without any dramatic reactions such as screaming or fainting. As the group drew nearer to the zombies, Yichen and Zhou Feng had already readied their steel pipes, dispatching the creatures with swift precision. The girls, witnessing nothing but the fallen corpses as they passed, were unaware of the confrontation that had just occurred. However, when they caught sight of the bodies, Jiaqian, usually carefree, suddenly emitted a quiet sob, a sound subtle enough for Yichen to detect. Perhaps it was fear, or perhaps something else. Since she remained silent, Yichen chose to feign ignorance, sensing she needed to come to terms with her emotions on her own. Zhou Feng, who had been walking steadily, suddenly turned back, teasing, "Did you see the valiant figures of me and Chenggu just now? From this day forth, we shall protect you. Welcome to the Apocalypse Steel Pipe Escape Team. I am your Vice Captain O, Jiaqian. Why are you crying?" No one responded to Zhou Feng. "Jiaqian, weren't you always the tough girl? Why the tears now?" he continued, unwittingly striking a nerve. Remarkably, Jiaqian did not engage in their usual banter. After a considerable pause, she finally composed herself enough to explain. "One of those zombies was my classmate. I couldn't bear the weight of it all. The thought of someone who had once sat beside her in class, now reduced to a rotting, stinking corpse, was a reality too harrowing for anyone to accept instantly." As the narrow path neared its end, a zombie suddenly staggered into view, directly approaching Yichen. Without a moment's hesitation, Yichen raised the steel pipe in his hand, ready to strike, only to feel his clothing tugged back. "Stop! Let her go." Rainqing grasped the hem of Yichen's garment. Yichen swiftly adjusted his stance, using the pipe defensively to push the zombie back, creating distance to ensure the safety of the group. "Representative Ku, even if she was once someone you knew, she is no longer that person. Once transformed into such a creature, all remnants of humanity are lost." If we allow even a flicker of mercy in our hearts, it will seize the opportunity and leave us with no chance. We must survive. Yichen understood that in such dire moments, compassion could cost lives. This was not the time for leniency. Zombies possess no humanity, no memories of the past. They only recognize flesh and blood as their delectable feast. If you find this intolerable, turn away and do not look. I will end it swiftly. Leaving it alive poses no benefit to us, yet it may harm others. Yichen tightened his grip on the steel pipe, preparing to advance once more. No. Ranqing clung tightly to his sleeve, tears streaming down her face like pearls from a broken string. She was our dormitory manager, a good person. Let me handle this. Without waiting for a response, Ranqing suddenly seized the steel pipe and charged forward. Yichen hurried to follow, fearing that if she faltered, the zombie might retaliate. Fortunately, although heartbroken, Ranqing remained clear-headed. Employing the method Yichen had taught them in the dormitory, she swiftly dispatched the zombie. However, she wept for a long while afterward before finally calming down. The group, already silent, became even more subdued. After this ordeal, they safely traversed the path and arrived at the shores of Qinxua Lake. The lake shimmered under the sun. Scattered remnants of last year's withered lotus plants lending an air of desolation beneath the water's reflection. The fish, unlike during warmer days, swam in solitary silence. A small wooden boat was tethered to the lakeshore, gently bobbing with the waves. At that moment, a chilling breeze swept across Qinxua Lake. Chapter 22. By the shores of Qinxua Lake, let us detour this way to assess the situation at the cafeteria. We shall establish a temporary refuge there, then deliberate on our next steps. As Yichen was explaining the plan, a rustling sound echoed around them, akin to numerous footsteps converging in their direction. A sense of foreboding crept into Yichen's mind. Did you hear that sound? He asked, seeking confirmation of his suspicion. It resembles footsteps. No, Zhou replied, intentionally stepping forward to listen intently. Perhaps you are just fatigued, experiencing hallucinations? The others shook their heads in agreement, indicating they had heard nothing unusual. No, there truly are footsteps, and they are quite numerous. Yichen surveyed his surroundings and found no abnormalities, except for the crackling sounds emanating from the girls' dormitory behind him, where flames roared intermittently, accompanied by the occasional loud commotion. Something felt amiss. We cannot proceed any further. Everyone climb the trees. Yichen assessed the area and selected a tree that was neither too large nor too small, easily climbable, and instructed the girls to take refuge in its branches. He then chose a suitable tree for himself and swiftly ascended. This left 3 bewildered boys standing beneath the tree. Chengge, what about us? Zhou inquired. Aren't you going to help us choose a tree? Pick any tree you like. Yichen gestured towards the distance. Hurry, or it will be too late. At the far end of Qinxua Lake, several zombies had emerged, and behind them, a multitude of grayish figures could be faintly discerned, slowly advancing. Likely drawn by the sounds of chaos from the burning girls' dormitory. We're finished. We're doomed. Zhou exclaimed, scrambling to climb a tree, lying low on a branch. Barely daring to breathe, Yichen, unable to climb, was sweating profusely with anxiety. As the horde of zombies drew nearer, Yichen quickly assisted Yichen up onto a relatively lower tree, advising him to remain silent and still. In a last-ditch effort, Yichen leapt onto a tree, landing gracefully, exuding an air of a hero. Yichen mused that this parkour activity, often deemed reckless, could indeed save lives in critical moments. The zombies inched closer, bringing with them an unbearable stench that made breathing nearly impossible. The girls clung to the trees, tightly shutting their eyes, too terrified to witness the unfolding horror. Fortunately, the horde did not linger long, moving directly towards the blazing girls' dormitory, oblivious to the people perched above. However, Yichen's position was precarious. The tree he climbed was rather low, and a towering zombie nearly locked eyes with him. Thankfully, the din of the fire diverted the creature's attention. I didn't know we had such tall classmates at our school. That one must be at least 2 meters. Zhou whispered. Why not go down and ask him what he eats to grow so tall? Yichen replied. Do you think I dare to go down? Zhou pretended to leap from the tree but quickly recoiled. I truly do not dare. Heh. Everyone quiet. Do not attract the zombie's attention. Yichen cautioned. Zhou shrank back. Chengge, are we going to spend the night up in the trees? It seems these zombies won't be leaving anytime soon. They're moving away. Yichen noted. The footsteps over there are becoming less frequent. He pointed towards the lake. Let us hold on a little longer. Taking Yichen's words to heart, Zhou refrained from further complaints, quietly lying in the tree, counting the zombies passing below in a barely audible voice. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is a bit shabby, his hairstyle is quite lacking, and the odor is unbearable. A steamed fellow, with a leg already severed. Might it be prudent to refrain from joining the fray? While you hasten onward, Do take a moment to appreciate the surrounding scenery. Engaging in self-dialogue. The zombies meandered leisurely beneath the trees, occasionally colliding with the trunks, causing the branches to tremble violently. This is quite unacceptable, Feng continued his soliloquy, simultaneously twisting his body. I must stretch my limbs. Should an emergency arise, I need to be prepared. As he writhed like a maggot upon the tree, he justified his movements as necessary exercise. At last, the fragile branch beneath him could no longer endure the weight of Zhou Feng's considerable bulk, and with a resounding crack, it snapped, sending him plummeting downward. The nearby girls gasped in shock, unable to suppress their cries, for beneath him lurked several zombies. In that fleeting moment of descent, Zhou Feng managed to grasp another branch, preventing a direct fall. The broken limb tumbled down, striking a zombie squarely on the head, causing it to look up just as Zhou Feng's feet came into view. With a guttural growl, the zombie opened its mouth to bite, prompting Zhou Feng to quickly retract his legs. However, as he did so, the branch, bent under pressure, gradually maneuvered him into the embrace of the zombie. The creature, elated by this turn of events, lunged forward to take a bite, eliciting another round of shrieks from the girls. Without hesitation, Yichen leapt from the tree, swiftly dispatching the zombie with a steel pipe. The commotion alerted other nearby zombies, who began to converge on their location. Yichen, undeterred, quickly ascended the tree once more. Yet Zhou Feng found himself unable to locate a suitable tree. Those surrounding him were either too diminutive or difficult to climb. The only viable option was the very tree he had just fallen from, but its branches were now broken. Old He, I shall accompany you, Zhou Feng called out, rushing to the base of Yicheng's tree. As he grasped the branches to climb, Yicheng delivered a swift kick to his forehead. Do not endanger me. This sapling cannot withstand the weight of 2 grown men. Look over there. That tree belonging to Yichen is quite sturdy, while indeed robust. It was also too short and lacked space for 2. Zhou Feng attempted to ascend once more, prompting another kick from Yicheng. Why not join Chenggu instead? Your tree can accommodate 2. However, if you join me, the tree will surely break. You ought to devise an alternative plan swiftly. The main group approaches. Yicheng gestured dismissively to the side. Zhou Feng turned, nearly losing his composure in terror. Before him stood 3 zombies, with many more advancing toward him. Zombies possess a notable tendency to flock together. Where one appears, a second, a third, and soon a whole horde is sure to follow. Yicheng, you scoundrel, Zhou Feng muttered as he began to circle the tree in a panic. The undead exhibit little intelligence, trailing closely behind Zhou Feng as he dashed about, soon gathering a horde of zombies, all howling and flailing their arms. Help, help me, Yicheng, even as a ghost, I shall not spare you. Brother Feng, a boat, a boat. Suddenly, Yichen, who had been silent, burst forth with excitement, pointing toward the Qiushue lake ahead. Brother Feng, look over there. In chapter 23, What's wrong, Chenggu? Zhou Feng followed Yichen's pointed finger, spotting a small wooden boat tethered to the lake's edge, gently swaying with the water, emanating a sense of tranquility and safety. Without a moment's hesitation, Zhou Feng sprinted toward it, leaping from the shore into the boat, causing it to shudder and ripple the water. The pursuing zombies, with a series of splashes, plunged into the lake, sinking beneath the surface. The remaining undead stood helplessly on the shore, gazing at the boat a mere 2 or 3 meters away. Why aren't you pursuing me anymore, you little turtles? Come on. Zhou Feng sprawled out in the bottom of the boat, playfully gesturing. Come on, all of you. You've momentarily found safety, yet you disregard your companions? Yicheng scolded. You bring this horde of zombies upon us. What are we to do now? Who told you not to save me earlier? Zhou Feng retorted. Chenggu, you all should come down. I believe this boat is safer than the trees, and it's much more comfortable here. Let that old dog Yicheng stay up in the trees. Zhou Feng called out to Yichen, who wore a troubled expression. After a brief silence, he replied, All right. I will descend to clear the zombies below. Everyone should find an opportunity to board. With that, he leaped from the tree, using the trunk for cover, swiftly dispatching the zombies before him with his steel pipe. However, to approach and clear the zombies near Yimeng and the others, his back would be vulnerable to attack. At that moment, Yicheng also descended from the tree, swiftly dispatching a few zombies before positioning himself behind Yichen. Chenggu, I'll cover you. Good. The two coordinated their movements, quickly clearing the surrounding zombies and those guarding the small wooden boat on the shore. Zhou Feng maneuvered the boat closer to the shore. As the girls jumped down from the trees one by one, rapidly transferring to the boat, with Yichen following closely behind, safely aboard. Nearby, a group of zombies who had merely been passing by turned their attention toward the bare tree, now adorned with several individuals, and were drawn closer by the commotion. Yicheng, you board the boat first. Yichen commanded. Yicheng, discerning the urgency in Yichen's tone, instantly understood the gravity of the situation. Without hesitation, he executed a parkour move and leapt onto the boat. In that moment, the horde of zombies had approached. Yichen kicked the boat away, which glided several meters across the water until, tethered by the rope still tied to the shore, it jolted to a halt. What does this mean, Brother Chen? He could have simply jumped up earlier. Why did he stay behind to deal with those zombies? Does he think this is a movie? Zhou Feng, filled with anxiety, gazed at Yichen, who was standing alone on the shore, once again engaging in combat with the undead. Brother Chen, he has his own thoughts. Do not attempt to fathom him with your own reasoning. He's Yichen, enigmatic as ever, remarked. Look at Brother Chen's handsome and graceful figure, as if he shall never tire. If it were me, I would have collapsed long ago. I believe Brother Chen possesses remarkable potential for parkour. His strength and endurance are quite impressive. You two are still in the mood to joke around here? Hurry and row the boat back to fetch Brother Chen, Jia Qian exclaimed, growing anxious. He is nearly surrounded. Even if he were a robot, he would not withstand this relentless assault. Indeed, Yichen was gradually being pushed to the shore, no matter how much he attacked. For every zombie he downed, another would take its place, and more were arriving. He was quickly losing his footing. Brother Chen, we will row the boat closer. Please jump over. Zhou Feng shouted while straining to paddle. Yichen's face revealed a moment of distress. He fell silent, yet his hands continued to wield the steel pipe, relentlessly thrusting at the zombies. What is happening? It seems Brother Chen is reluctant to come aboard. Lao He, what do you think Brother Chen is planning? He's Yichen, initially inclined to fabricate a rationale, observed Yichen's current predicament, which indeed appeared dire. This did not seem like a situation born of deliberate intent, but rather one of desperation, especially as he noted Yichen's pallor. He was typically composed and steady, seldom exhibiting such a countenance. In the blink of an eye, the boat had drawn near, and Zhou Feng urged Yichen once more to jump over. Yichen's complexion darkened further. After a moment's hesitation, he decided to leap. As soon as he landed on the boat, he lost his balance and fell, crashing onto the bottom of the vessel. Brother Chen, 6 pairs of eyes simultaneously turned towards Yichen, encircling him with expressions of concern. Brother Chen, you haven't been bitten, have you? Are you about to transform? Zhou Feng anxiously scrutinized Yichen's exposed skin, searching for any potential wounds. Could you not think of something more positive? Yichen slowly opened his eyes. Everyone, do not panic. I am fine. Still claiming you are fine. You are lying down. Zhou Feng exclaimed. Brother Chen, what is wrong with you? Do not force yourself. Yichen pushed Zhou Feng aside and leaned in closer. Yes, Brother Chen, what is the matter? Shall I help you sit up? Yimeng also squeezed in. Everyone gazed eagerly at Yichen, whose face began to redden. I assure you, I am perfectly fine. I am simply seasick. I've been seasick since childhood. I can hardly stand on the boat, Yichen declared, rolling over and burying his head in the boat. This. Yichen felt a bit embarrassed, but sought to ease the atmosphere. Even prominent figures can have their little quirks. Brother Chen, you need not be shy. Do you know what a quirk means? Yimeng inquired from the side, but Yichen pretended not to hear, as the small boat was tethered by ropes. It could not drift far, merely moving away from the shore, left to float aimlessly. However, the number of zombies along the banks was steadily increasing, with some being pushed and tumbling into the lake with a splash. This commotion, in turn, attracted even more zombies, plunging them into a vicious cycle. What shall we do next? I am quite famished, Zhou Feng complained, lazily resting against the boat's railing. The sky was dimming, with fine ashes from distant fire sites drifting down upon them. The lake was nearly encircled by zombies, present in every direction. It would be prudent for us to remain in the boat for a while, suggested Yichen. Yichen glanced at Yichen, then surveyed their surroundings, murmuring, we ought to devise a plan. Once darkness falls, we cannot spend the night here, or we shall freeze to death. You brat, are we not considering a plan? I was just thinking about it. Zhou Feng shot a glare at Yichen. Can't you see Chingu is unwell? Why are you being so fierce? Isn't he right? Without Chingu, you wouldn't even think of anything. What sort of plan could you possibly come up with? Jia Qian's temper flared again. Zhou Feng kept apologizing, grinning as he said, yes, you are absolutely correct. Jia Qian did not grace him with a kind expression and scolded him a few more times, which he accepted without objection. Chapter 24. The first cafeteria by Yichen turned over at the bottom of the boat, finally facing upwards. Everyone, please be quiet. I have a dagger in my bag. Zhou Feng, go retrieve it and cut the rope fastening the boat. Zhou Feng hurriedly fished out the dagger from Yichen's bag. It was an exquisitely crafted dagger, its sheath made of leather, exuding a sense of antiquity. The blade gleamed with a cold white light, almost dazzling upon drawing it, featuring a channel for bloodletting. Truly a formidable weapon. Even Yichen, nearby, was taken aback. Chingu, where did you acquire such a fine item? I found it. It was discarded by the first wave of people who fled from the boys' dormitory that day. You can actually find something like this? Your luck is extraordinary. Yichen exclaimed in admiration. This was a restricted weapon, and acquiring even one was no small feat. Furthermore, it appeared to be of superior quality, resembling a handcrafted piece rather than a product of a factory assembly line. There were no markings on it, suggesting it belonged to someone of significance. Otherwise, such an item could not be created. Let us not concern ourselves with that. As long as it is useful, it suffices. Yichen was rather indifferent. Having picked up the dagger that day primarily for the convenience of carrying a weapon, Feng took the dagger to sever the rope, and in a swift motion, the rope was cut. Wow, this dagger is incredibly effective. I barely exerted any force, and the rope was severed. Feng's eyes sparkled with excitement as he fondled the dagger with reverence. Chenggu, will you gift this dagger to me? This is truly a divine tool that can slice through iron as if it were mud. Before Yichen could utter a word, Yichen hastily seized the dagger, exclaiming that leaving such a weapon in his hands would be a sheer waste. Ah, the scabbard bears 2 characters. Cold Moon. It seems this is the name of the blade. What a splendid name it is. Indeed, the dagger resembles the frigid glow of moonlight. It appears to be named by someone of cultured disposition. Quite commendable. Allow me to have another glance. As Feng moved to snatch it, Yichen swiftly tucked the dagger into Yichen's bag, leaving Feng hesitant to reach out again. Such a fine weapon is akin to a beloved spouse of Chenggu. One should not lay hands upon another's partner. Feng leaned closer, addressing Chenggu. The rope has been severed. What shall we do next? Please instruct us. Yichen remained still, casually gesturing ahead, instructing everyone to exert themselves in rowing the boat toward that direction, from which they would disembark. Chenggu, you truly possess extraordinary insight. How did you know that direction held fewer zombies? Feng had evidently become an eager sycophant of Yichen. It's obvious. I observed the area from the shore just moments ago. Yet, Chenggu, did you not suggest we head to the cafeteria? There is nothing in that vicinity. If we veer toward the cafeteria from there, the journey will be lengthened, and zombies lurk along the way. Yichen murmured, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by Yimeng. Little brother, spare us the fretting. If there are zombies, let Chenggu and Yichen handle them. We merely need to follow their lead. Yimeng asserted. Fear not. There is also a cafeteria in that direction. Yichen had already unfurled the map of the high school in his mind, aware of every corner. Passing through the football field leads directly to the first cafeteria. We shall proceed there. Ancheng No.1 High School originally possessed 2 cafeterias. Yichen and his companions initially planned to visit the second cafeteria, which was the typical dining spot for students. This second cafeteria spanned 2 stories, making it an ideal refuge from zombies. The first cafeteria, conversely, catered primarily to faculty and wealthier students, offering a selection of stir-fried dishes and a la carte options. Thus, when one mentions the cafeteria, most minds drift toward the second, seldom considering the first. After all, very few families can afford the luxury of daily stir-fried meals. The first cafeteria consists of a single floor, adorned with expansive glass walls and windows. Its safety measures are not as robust as those of the second cafeteria, yet its aesthetic appeal is undeniable. Alas, in a post-apocalyptic world, beauty holds little value. Safety is paramount. However, Yichen and his group found themselves with limited options. Any place to take refuge was a welcome relief. Ah, the first cafeteria. How could I have overlooked that? Feng exclaimed. Chenggu, you are truly remarkably perceptive. Have you meticulously mapped out our every contingency? No one acknowledged Feng. Everyone was strenuously rowing, and the small boat soon neared the shore, just as they brushed against the lakeside. Before the boat had even come to a halt, Yichen executed a nimble leap from the vessel, landing firmly on the ground. Without a moment's hesitation, he drew a steel pipe and swiftly dispatched several zombies. The onlookers gaped in astonishment, their jaws nearly dropping to the ground. Was this truly the same frail Yichen they had encountered moments before? Just moments ago, one could hardly sit up, yet now they brim with vitality. As the boat stabilized, Yichen and Feng leapt ashore, where Yichen had already tidied up the area. Let us head directly to the dining hall. Yichen remarked with an air of nonchalance. The group immediately understood, reverting to their previous formation, treading lightly behind Yichen as they made their way toward the dining hall, navigating through an overgrown flower bed and an empty sports field. The silhouette of the dining hall emerged at the far end. A cursory glance revealed only a few zombies aimlessly wandering the court, their grotesque and contorted forms betraying their true nature, reminiscent of couples strolling in a park. It seems fortune favors us. Most of the zombies have been lured to the lakeside and the site of the fire, Yichen observed. The group turned to see that the direction of the girls' dormitory was still shrouded in thick smoke, with a relentless shower of ashes raining down. cloaking their garments in a foreboding sense of doom. It was likely that no living soul remained within the dormitory. Silently, they traversed the soccer field and arrived before the dining hall. The facade of the hall featured large glass windows, through which one could glimpse the orderly arrangement of tables and chairs within. Yet today, half of the glass was shattered, smeared with bloodstains. The once neat furnishings lay in disarray, conveying the aftermath of a horrific event, a massacre. Perhaps lives were lost here, or perhaps some were transformed into mindless creatures. The girls were visibly shaken by the gruesome sight before them. Their fear of the zombies was eclipsed by the stark reality of the bloodshed. The entire hall was enveloped in an eerie silence, devoid of any sound. Yichen signaled for everyone to halt, then cautiously slipped through the broken window into the dining area. Upon entering, the metallic scent of blood became overwhelmingly apparent, indicating that this slaughter had occurred within the last few days. Chapter 25. The kitchen. Yichen did not venture further into the dimly lit hall. Momentarily unable to discern the situation within, an idea struck him. He could mimic the tactics he had seen in zombie films, making noise to detect any lurking undead. He retrieved a steel pipe from his possession and struck it against the ground several times. The sound echoed ominously in the vast dining area, creating an unsettling atmosphere. After a brief pause, there was no response. It appeared that no living creatures resided within. As dusk descended and the temperature plummeted to a mere 2 or 3 degrees, Yichen beckoned the others to enter for warmth. The group filed in through the entrance Yichen had used, while he activated the flashlight on his phone and ventured deeper into the dining hall. Spending the night in a restaurant is evidently impractical. It is not only drafty but also lacks any form of shielding, making it susceptible to assaults. Had there been only a single shard of broken glass, it might have been manageable, presenting a formidable barrier. However, with multiple pieces shattered, if one were to slumber in the dead of night, they could easily fall prey to zombies slipping through the gaps, leaving no option but to meet a fiery end. Yichen, holding his phone aloft, ventured forth and soon reached the food-serving window. Although it was a faculty canteen, the serving window bore no distinction from others, being half closed. The upper half was glass, while the lower half presented a concrete ledge, with an empty space in between to facilitate the handover of food. Yichen was confident that, even in the event of a zombie invasion, this place would be difficult to breach. Only the living possessed the intellect to climb over the ledge. As Yichen advanced a few paces further, he discovered that the wooden door leading to the serving window was ajar, heightening his vigilance. Typically, when the cafeteria staff departed, they exited through the staff passage in the kitchen, never utilizing this door. If it was left open, it indicated that someone or something had entered from the dining area. However, it remained uncertain whether the intruder was human or something else entirely. Yichen's breath quickened. The darkness enveloped the space, and the flashlight function of his phone barely illuminated any distance, rendering the situation within the serving window unclear. Relying solely on memory, he envisioned the inner layout. At the back was the cooking station, adjacent to a large sink, with several stainless steel tables for food preparation. As he pondered, the outlines of these objects seemed to materialize within the darkness, which only intensified his trepidation. If everything lay shrouded in complete darkness, it would be less daunting, for the unknown holds no shape. Yet, the faint silhouettes ignited curiosity and dread. What were those forms? Were they different? Might something lurk within? Clearing his throat, Yichen softly beckoned Yichen to approach. Among the group, only Yichen harmonized well with him and possessed significant combat prowess. Yichen tiptoed closer, peering into the serving window, and remarked, "Brother Chun, there can't be anything lurking in there, right? I'm feeling a bit frightened." Yichen remained silent, merely tapping the concrete ledge with his steel pipe, eliciting a series of clear sounds that echoed into the stillness. The murmurs of the crowd dissipated. Breaths held in anticipation of any shift in the air. Silence reigned. There was nothing, no sound at all. Surely, there are no living beings inside. Yichen ventured. Yichen nodded, yet unease lingered in his heart, a sentiment he refrained from voicing. Perhaps he was merely being overly cautious, after all. The safety of all was at stake, prompting his tendency to overthink. "You and I shall venture inside to investigate. We must exercise utmost caution," Yichen instructed Yichen. The two, gripping their steel pipes, stepped through the open door beside the window. With the faint beam of light from Yichen's flashlight, the two individuals thoroughly explored the kitchen, finding nothing amiss. The door leading to the staff passage was securely shut, ensuring no immediate danger. Yichen promptly beckoned everyone to enter, barricading both the entrance and the passage door as a precaution. As Yimeng stepped inside, she began to rummage around, ultimately producing a large oil drum. She poured half a bowl of oil and, acquiring a length of rope from an unknown source, placed it into the bowl of oil. "Does anyone have a lighter? I need to borrow it," she called out. Yichen retrieved a windproof lighter from her backpack and handed it over. Yichen ignited the rope in the oil bowl, crafting a rudimentary oil lamp. With the light from this lamp, she proceeded to make 3 more until Yichen intervened, advising her to cease as it posed a safety hazard. Let's be cautious. We can only leave 1 lamp lit while we sleep, and someone must keep watch, he instructed. With the illumination, the atmosphere lightened, dispelling their earlier fears and allowing everyone to relax. Let's eat something. Afterward, we should retire early and resume our exploration of the cafeteria tomorrow morning to see what provisions we can find, Yichen suggested, retrieving food from his backpack to share with everyone. Earlier, while preparing their emergency bags, Yichen had advised everyone to pack some food and water, which spared them from hunger in this critical situation. I'm starving. I've not eaten all day. Chenggu, you could have brought the food out sooner. Feng grumbled, devouring a small bread roll with fervor, lamenting Yichen's apparent indifference. Yichen quickly interjected, didn't you stuff your bag with food as well? I saw you sneaking a snack on the boat earlier, and yet you claim to have gone a day without eating. You scoundrel. You let me suffer while you feasted. Feng retorted, hurling the bag of bread rolls at Yichen's face. The two began to tussle playfully on the kitchen floor, a familiar scene from their past antics. Unable to watch any longer, Yichen admonished them to channel their energy into tidying up and preparing a sleeping area for everyone. Both complied readily, eager to assist. And soon they had cleared a clean space. The girls unfurled lightweight blankets from their backpacks, and they all huddled together for the night. Fortunately, during their earlier packing, Yichen had suggested bringing along 1 or 2 lightweight, warm blankets, foreseeing the likelihood of spending nights in unexpected places, perhaps even outdoors. Without the blanket, they would have had to lie fully clothed on the cold floor tonight. In early January, the coldest time of the year. Traditionally, someone must keep watch at night. I'll take the second half, so you all decide who will keep watch during the first half, Yichen stated before leaning against a wall to rest. He took on the more challenging task of the night watch, showing his selflessness, which moved everyone. Before long, they organized the watch schedule and settled down to sleep. On this day of arduous travel, everyone was utterly exhausted. Although the usual distance from the girls' dormitory to the first cafeteria is merely a few minutes, this time they had journeyed for an entire day. The chill of the day, coupled with hunger, tension, and fear, gradually dissipated only as they surrendered to sleep. Yet, what dreams filled their slumber? Were they visions of family, companions, or the grim reality that surrounded them? Chapter 26. Exploration before dawn on the following day. Someone volunteered to take over for Yichen, who had kept vigil for the longest stretch of the night. He did not hesitate, but quickly sought the refuge of sleep. As daylight broke, they awoke with bleary eyes to discover an astonishing abundance of food in the kitchen. Though some vegetables stored in the freezer had begun to decay, numerous bags and cans of food remained well within their expiration date. Items such as ham, luncheon meat, canned fruits, packaged bamboo shoots, cured sausages, and dried tofu were plentiful. We've struck gold. We can settle here for the long haul, Yichen thought, reveling in the prospect of feasting on such provisions. Feng's eyes sparkled with anticipation as he surveyed the contents of the large freezer. Wait, Yichen began to caution, but before he could utter a second word, Feng had already flung open the freezer door. A pungent stench instantly filled the air, and the visible change in everyone's expressions was unmistakable. Feng was the first to retch, followed closely by several girls who rushed to the sink to heave. Seizing the moment before he too succumbed, Yichen hurriedly shut the freezer door and opened a window. Outside stood a bewildered zombie, glancing back in confusion, but Yichen paid it no mind. The horrific odor wafting from within was far worse than that of 100 zombies combined. Who could spare a thought for one? Eventually, they could no longer endure the kitchen's foulness and fled to the dining area strewn with shards of glass. What on earth was in that freezer? It smelled like a corpse. Feng spat as he described the ghastly sight he had witnessed. Yellowish, soupy liquid with a hint of greenish mold. Ugh! Can you please stop? Yimeng's face flushed with anger. She had already heaved until her stomach ached, and Feng's account only provoked further dry retches. Enough already. It's certainly not a corpse, Yichen interjected quickly, attempting to clarify. What you saw was merely some frozen meat stored by the cafeteria. After several days without power, it naturally spoiled, and that odor was trapped inside the freezer. Before he could finish, Yimeng retched again. Meanwhile, Yichen wandered through the kitchen as if nothing were amiss, turning on the faucet in an attempt to wash away the remnants of their earlier expulsion. To everyone's astonishment, water gushed forth after a couple of sputtering sounds, leaving Yichen stunned. Chenggu, come quickly. Yichen glanced over at Yichen, pinching his nose. Don't you smell that? What smell? Yichen sniffed intently, oblivious to any foul odor. It appeared that her sense of smell was quite impaired. Very well then. You may remain there. No, Chenggu, there's actually running water here. Upon hearing Yichen's words, Yichen did not rush over immediately. Instead, he waited until the unpleasant odors had dissipated before returning to the kitchen. I believe the school kitchen does not utilize tap water, but rather well water, Feng remarked. Yichen felt he shared this impression, recalling that the school had previously commissioned someone to drill a well and even erected a water tower to prevent sudden water shortages, ensuring that the cafeteria would have water available for students' meals. By the way, I seem to remember that someone came last year to install solar water heaters here. Surely there can't be hot water, can there? Yimeng said as she turned on the hot water tap. To her surprise, after a brief flow of cold water, hot water indeed emerged, prompting cheers from the group. Yichen first went to close the windows he had previously opened to maintain the indoor warmth, as everyone was feeling quite cold. To his astonishment, 3 zombies had already approached the window. Yichen paused momentarily, then contemplated certain matters, though he decided it was not urgent to disclose to everyone just yet. With the availability of hot water, everyone naturally desired to indulge in a comforting hot shower. After all, as long as the sun shines and the water tower is replenished, there would be no concern for a lack of hot water. Thus, they resolved to explore what else this cafeteria had to offer. However, they were cautioned not to stray too far from one another and to ensure their weapons were at the ready, should anything amiss be discovered. They were to alert him immediately. With a commanding voice, Yichen prepared them for the venture ahead. He instructed Yichen to use a wire to unlock the door leading to the staff passage, and Yichen eagerly entered first, wielding a steel pipe. Beyond the door lay a lengthy corridor that, despite being daytime, was shrouded in darkness, almost to the point of being unable to discern one's own hand. For safety's sake, Yichen resorted to his usual method of making some noise to ascertain whether any zombies lurked within. After receiving only silence in response, the group gathered their courage and proceeded onward. Those with functioning mobile phones took them out for illumination. In the dim light, they observed that both sides of the corridor were lined with identical doors, each affixed with a sign denoting the purpose of the room beyond. Storage room, changing room, shower room, restroom, disinfection room, and finally, the duty room. At the end of the corridor stood a security door, serving as the back entrance to the cafeteria. Peering through the peephole revealed an open area outside, with distant buildings that likely housed staff dormitories. Upon seeing the shower room, several girls could not resist rushing inside. Yichen, concerned for their safety, followed closely behind. Fortunately, the room contained only 2 small shower stalls, allowing him to survey the entire space for danger and finding none. A small window directly faced the door to the shower room, illuminating the confined space. Upon noticing Yichen's entrance, the 3 girls blushed in unison. Yichen felt a tinge of embarrassment himself. After checking the shower for hot water, he decided to leave. In that case, you 3 may take your showers first, while I accompany the others to explore the remaining rooms. Once you have finished, the boys will take their turn. While the girls were bathing, the 4 boys ventured together to inspect their most intriguing storage room. Unfortunately, the room contained very little of interest, just a jumble of cardboard boxes and various condiments like oil, salt, and vinegar. The remaining rooms held no allure for them, as they were all locked. However, Yichen, undeterred by the inconvenience, skillfully used a wire to unlock the disinfection room door. Upon shining his phone inside, he was astonished to discover a large gas cylinder, which he promptly reported to Yichen. Earlier, they had spotted a small gas stove in the kitchen, but it lacked fuel. Now, it appeared fate was favoring them. Where there was no gas, now there was gas. The boys struggled to transport the gas cylinder into the kitchen, connecting it to the stove, and to their surprise, it ignited. What serendipity! They now had hot water for bathing and could enjoy a warm meal. Feng was so elated he could hardly contain his excitement, suggesting they investigate the changing room next. If it contained blankets, their night's rest would be much more comfortable. Everyone nodded in agreement. The changing room was also locked, and its lock seemed sturdier than those of the other rooms. It appeared that the cafeteria staff stored their personal belongings there, fearing loss, hence the more robust lock. Forget it, we can't open this one. Let us check elsewhere, Yichen said. Yichen, however, was unwilling to concede defeat. He had boasted earlier that he could open nearly any lock on the market and refused to let his skills wane here. So he continued to exert effort with the wire. The others shook their heads and wandered off, planning to explore the duty room at the end of the corridor, leaving Yichen alone. As Yichen persisted, he sensed something was amiss. The door seemed to be locked from the inside. A chill surged from his feet, and he felt a cold sweat dampen his back. If the door was indeed locked from within, it suggested that someone, or something, was inside. Fear made his hands unsteady, and beads of perspiration formed on his fingers, glistening as if washed. Reluctantly, he halted his efforts and pressed his ear against the door, straining to detect any sounds from within. What he heard nearly sent his spirit fleeing. He discerned heavy breathing, right against the door, indicating the presence of someone inside. Perhaps even eavesdropping on Yixin's movements. Clatter. The wire slipped from Yixin's grasp and fell to the ground. Chenggu. There's something happening in here. He stammered, panic rising within him. Upon hearing Yixin's words, Yichen immediately tensed. What kind of commotion? It seems there's someone inside. Yixin replied, slowly backing away from the door. Are you certain it's a person and not something else? It must be a person. I heard breathing. Then that simplifies matters. Yichen felt a slight relief wash over him. If it were a zombie, the situation would undoubtedly pose a greater peril. However, when it comes to individuals encountered within the confines of the school, Yichen possessed a considerable degree of confidence in his ability to manage the situation. Of course, the same could not be said for those he might encounter outside the school premises, particularly in a place as enigmatic as Ancheng. Yichen steadied himself and instructed Yixin to knock on the door, assuring the occupants within that they meant no harm and could share the resources of the cafeteria, including food and water. Reluctantly, Yixin approached the door, and, just as he raised his hand to knock, it swung open unexpectedly. In the dim light, they beheld a shadowy figure sprinting down the corridor, emitting strange cries. Upon reaching the far end of the corridor and spotting Yichen and his companions blocking the way, the figure screeched and hastily flung open a door, darting inside. Unfortunately, it was the door to the shower room. Yichen cursed under his breath and, gripping a steel pipe, rushed forward. Inside the shower room, the terrified screams of girls filled the air. Upon entering, Yichen witnessed a disheveled man violently yanking open one of the stalls, attempting to drag out two girls who were exposed and vulnerable, in a bid to hide himself. In that moment, Yichen cast aside any thoughts of propriety, lunging at the man and seizing his collar, throwing him to the ground. He quickly stepped forward, pinning the man's back down with his foot and twisting his arms behind him. At that moment, footsteps echoed from the entrance of the shower room. Yichen and the others had caught up. Yichen glanced back. The stall door remained ajar. With the two girls huddled together in terror, and through the mist, he caught a glimpse of their porcelain-like figures. Now that the situation was secure, Yichen casually shut the stall door, muttering an apology. I saw nothing. What do you mean sorry for seeing nothing? Came Jiaqian's voice from within the stall. Just then, Yichen stepped into the shower room, inquiring, Chenggu, what is going on? What do you mean by sorry? You must have misheard. Jiaqian replied from inside the stall. Yichen quickly asked Yichen to fetch some rope, and the two of them bound the disheveled man securely before dragging him into the corridor for interrogation. Before long, the girls emerged from their showers, clad in fresh clothes, their damp hair cascading down, exuding a fragrant aroma. Even the bound man couldn't help but glance up, only to receive a sharp slap from Zhou Feng. Why do you have to look, you rascal? Yichen promptly intervened, reminding him, in a civilized society, we should refrain from violence. Let us question him and ascertain the situation. He must have arrived at the cafeteria before us, but doesn't he appear to be a staff member? He seems to be about our age, Yichen observed, scrutinizing the captive. Has he been frightened? Yichen leaned in for a closer look. Feeling a sense of familiarity with the individual, suspecting he might indeed be a classmate from the same year. I'm from class 4 of the senior year. What about you? Which class are you in? He has arrived, the man replied. What has arrived? Yichen felt somewhat bewildered. Zhou Feng raised his hand, intending to deliver another slap, but suddenly recalled Yichen's admonition and withdrew his hand. Brother Chun is asking you a question. Which class are you from, and what is your name? Have you stuffed your ears with chicken feathers and failed to hear? He has arrived, none can escape. Run quickly. Brother Chun, this person seems to be deranged. Zhou Feng shook his head. It appeared he had been frightened into madness. Yichen sighed. Upon seeing this disheveled individual earlier, he had already formed a suspicion. With hot water and food available in the cafeteria, how could one be in such a wretched state unless they were not of sound mind? Yichen and Yichen returned after inspecting the changing room, reporting that it was a complete mess, filled with excrement and empty cans, suggesting this person had been confined there for an extended period. There had initially been a large cotton blanket, but it had been soaked with urine. Yichen lamented, what a wretched creature. Enough, since he has lost his sanity. Let us not torment him further. Provide him with some food and water, and keep a watchful eye. We cannot allow him to escape. If he manages to flee, he will surely meet with disaster. Yichen remarked, glancing towards the duty room. That room is quite clean. Let us move our belongings there. We can rest there at night and continue our training during the day, just as we did in the girls' dormitory. Remember, this is not a place for long-term settlement. Do not take root here. One person should remain to watch over this madman, while the rest assist me in moving our things. Brother Chen, I will stay. The previously silent Yichen suddenly spoke. Ever since she had dealt with the zombie that had once been the dormitory matron, She had scarcely uttered a word. Bai Yichen declined her request, stating, "I cannot allow you to stay here with this lunatic. Perhaps I could extract some information from him," Yichen suggested. Feng immediately volunteered. Brother Chun, I will stay to protect her. Since this madman is bound, he certainly won't pose a threat." Bai Yichen finally nodded, leaving both Lu Yuqing and Feng to keep watch over the deranged individual, uncertain if they would indeed glean any information. Chapter 28. The madman's words. The group enthusiastically moved their belongings to the duty room, tidying up and finding cardboard boxes to lay on the floor, creating 2 makeshift beds. Although simple, they were infinitely more comfortable than sleeping on the ground. There were many rooms available, all of which had been checked, alleviating concerns about potential dangers. Following Bai Yichen's suggestion, the boys and girls were to sleep separately, allowing the girls to feel more at ease and sleep soundly at night. However, this proposal was met with unanimous opposition from the girls, who believed that sharing a room with the boys would provide them with a greater sense of security. In the event of any unforeseen circumstances, they would not find themselves in a state of disarray. Moreover, the girls expressed their desire to continue residing in the same room as the boys in the days to come. Once an unimaginable event has now been effortlessly realized. Were it not for the current dire circumstances, with his parents' fates hanging in the balance, Bai Yichen might even express gratitude for the emergence of zombies. While moving items, Jia discovered an additional gas canister in the kitchen, exclaiming joyfully that she intended to showcase her culinary skills at noon. As she prepared to chop vegetables for frying, Feng and Yichen returned, one wearing a troubled expression, while the other radiated joy. When Bai Yichen inquired about their circumstances, Yichen shook her head grimly, offering no reply. However, Feng cheerfully reported a successful outcome. Indeed, Yichen had managed to pry information from that deranged classmate. Though the account was somewhat disjointed, it painted a rough picture. Observing Yuchen's displeasure, Feng took on the role of narrator. It turned out that this unhinged student had been attending supplementary classes at a teacher's home, accompanied by over a dozen classmates from other schools. On the morning of January 1st, as they were engaged in lessons, the teacher inexplicably transformed into a zombie and began attacking them. Initially, they were taken aback, but having seen zombie films, they quickly accepted the bizarre reality. Furthermore, due to the predominance of male students in the group, the situation was swiftly brought under control. Only 2 classmates were bitten by the teacher, and they were promptly dealt with by the others. However, the group of over 10 individuals found themselves trapped in the teacher's home, unable to leave or communicate with the outside world. At first, they had food, as most households maintain a modest supply. Eventually, food ran out, and hunger compelled them to take risks, deciding to venture to the cafeteria in search of sustenance. They could see the cafeteria from the teacher's apartment daily. The distance between the two was not great, and it was possible to glimpse the apartments from the cafeteria windows. After a brief preparation, armed with knives and makeshift weapons, they charged towards the cafeteria. Along the way, nearly all the girls perished, with some remarking that their absence was a blessing, as they only screamed and did not combat zombies. Others joked that as long as the pretty girl survived, it was acceptable. Upon reaching the cafeteria, only 12 boys and 1 girl remained. In light of their classmates' tragic fate, some panicked. These fragments of information were pieced together by Feng and Yichen, as the individual in question could no longer articulate a coherent and meaningful sentence, merely repeating a series of words incessantly. It is no wonder that Yuchen's countenance was so grim. After hearing the account, Bai Yichen furrowed his brow and exclaimed, "Are you lacking in common sense? How can you still find joy in such a situation? Isn't it evident? We have merely extracted the ramblings of a madman." Feng, still basking in his misguided pride, failed to notice Bai Yichen's growing discontent. "You dimwit, how could you overlook what Yichen has already considered?" Bai Yichen, frustrated with Feng's naivety, delivered a sharp slap to his head. "What do you mean I lack sense? Are you not aware of the implications of what just transpired?" As Bai Yichen prepared to elaborate to Feng, Jia approached, her apron tied snugly around her waist, bouncing with enthusiasm. "Dinner is ready. Today, you will savor my culinary skills." Observing Jia exuberance, it seemed that, aside from Yichen and Bai Yichen, everyone else was in high spirits. Bai Yichen resolved to defer sharing his thoughts until after the meal. Jia culinary prowess was indeed commendable. She had prepared several dishes using ingredients from the cafeteria. There were both meat and vegetable dishes, accompanied by a warm soup. The offerings included stir-fried ham with bamboo shoots, steamed cured meats and sausages, and a delightful soup made from canned green peas, along with a large pot of fragrant rice. Having gone over half a month without a proper hot meal, the others were captivated, their eyes wide and mouths watering. Upon hearing Jia announce that dinner was served, they eagerly grabbed their bowls and chopsticks, rushing towards the food like hungry wolves. Jia Who would have thought that beneath your fiery temperament lies such delicate thoughtfulness? Zhou Feng's remark was cut short by a withering glance from Yichen. Yichen, your cooking surpasses that of our school's chef by leaps and bounds. Indeed. Yichen, the restaurant near the school cannot compare to your exquisite dishes. Listening to the praises, Yichen's heart swelled with joy, and she eagerly shared that while cooking, she had discovered a bounty of dried vegetables, such as dried black fungus and kelp, along with a basket of fresh potatoes. She promised to prepare a grand feast for everyone that evening. Laughter erupted, and happiness radiated from their faces. In tumultuous times, happiness can be so simple, just a warm meal. Perhaps Yichen cooking was not exceptionally gourmet, but the steaming dishes evoked memories of home, safety, and the peaceful life they yearned for. These associations touched their hearts. Yet, Yichen and Yichen remained somber, their bowls in hand, unable to savor the meal, finding it difficult to swallow. After dinner, Feng began to complain about the odor clinging to him, expressing a desire for a hot shower, and Yichen insisted on accompanying him. Yichen provided some food to the madman and took him along for a wash. Whatever Yichen had said to him previously seemed to have calmed him. As he appeared less agitated, even somewhat serene, Yichen advised him that as long as he refrained from running about or opening doors, he would loosen his restraints, provide him with food, and ensure his safety. The madman nodded vigorously, and Yichen proceeded to untie him. Chapter 29. A new threat. The boys had finished their baths, each one looking refreshed and clean, which certainly caught the girls' attention. Yichen gathered everyone together, including the madman, to share some of his insights. It was evident that everyone was already aware of the recent events that transpired in the cafeteria. Yichen's gaze swept around the room, landing on the madman, who was nodding enthusiastically in agreement. I had previously remarked upon our arrival at the cafeteria that this was not a place we could linger indefinitely. This morning, I observed the girls' dormitory from the cafeteria entrance. The fire was still raging, and judging by the direction of the smoke, it seemed to have ignited the surrounding structures. I fear the flames may continue to spread. This city has truly succumbed to chaos. Yimeng abruptly interrupted Yichen, stating that the fire had been burning for a day and a night without any sign of firefighters arriving. It seems they have given up. In the past, whenever someone burned a piece of paper on campus, the fire department would respond almost instantaneously. The others exchanged glances, realizing that it had taken her this long to grasp the severity of the situation outside. Yichen continued, the expanding fire poses a grave threat to us. While it may not reach our vicinity immediately, a larger blaze creates more noise, inevitably attracting more zombies to our school. This is also why I previously advised against remaining here for too long. If we encounter a horde, this single-story building offers us no chance of survival. A two-story structure, with adequate supplies of food and water, would afford us a fighting chance. Then let us quietly relocate to the second cafeteria, Feng suggested, leaping to his feet, feeling quite pleased with his idea, as if he were a genius. The second cafeteria is nearly engulfed in flames. Do you wish to be roasted? Yichen mocked, adding, if that thing growing on your neck is of no use, you might as well donate it. Old dog, just wait. Feng, noticing the impatience on Yichen's face, lowered his tone and gradually retook his seat. In truth, even without this fire, we could not remain here for long. With so many of us, the space is rather limited. The heat radiating from our bodies will inevitably draw the zombies closer. Everyone has seen zombie films. I needn't elaborate further. Why do zombies always manage to find humans? Even in silence, they will draw nearer, guided by the warmth of the human body. If this continues, the cafeteria will surely become surrounded. As Yichen spoke, he moved to the window and opened it, inviting everyone to look outside. Just yesterday, there was only one zombie. This morning, there were 3, and now there are 4. This has occurred in less than 24 hours. If these 4 were to demonstrate a modicum of intelligence and enter through the broken glass door, making their way to our food service window, who could guarantee that they wouldn't find a way into the kitchen? Yichen's words sent a chill down everyone's spine. If, one night, while we were sound asleep, a zombie were to sneak in and bite someone, it would surely throw everything into chaos. The girls' faces were pallid, and the boys appeared equally terrified. Their previous joviality during the meal entirely vanished. Even the madman's complexion had turned ashen. It was unclear whether he comprehended Yichen's intentions. However, this was not our most pressing concern. Yichen sighed, noting that the movements of the zombies could be anticipated. If we exercise caution, we could undoubtedly evade the threats they posed. Yet, what about the dangers posed by humanity? Humanity as a threat? How could that be? Yimeng interjected. Isn't it safer with more people? Staying together increases our chances of survival. Don't forget the incident with the dormitory supervisor, Yichen, usually somewhat immature, now spoke with newfound maturity. Some humans can indeed pose a threat. Brother Chen, are you suggesting that there are humans nearby? Zhou Feng seemed to regain his composure. Yichen nodded solemnly. It was not difficult to deduce from the madman's words that their group, under the threat of death, had lost their humanity. If they could turn on their own, what would they do to strangers like us? But didn't they die? The shattered glass and blood in the cafeteria are proof of that, Yichen argued. They came to the cafeteria for food. Throughout our journey here, including the cafeteria, we have not seen any food scattered about. If they were truly dead, where did the food go? In the midst of the chaos, someone must have fled with provisions. Given the surrounding threat of zombies at that moment, they likely did not escape far, potentially returning to the faculty dormitory, the classroom buildings, or another hiding place. So, you mean there are living humans nearby? That is not so terrifying, is it? Not all of humanity can be extinct. There must be many survivors. Zhou Feng began to expose his naivety again. Survivors are not the threat. However, those few survivors who escaped with food certainly are. Yichen's gaze sharpened. Instinctively gripping a spatula beside him, they would consume their supplies. They were aware that food remained in the cafeteria, and they also knew that zombies could not linger there indefinitely. Upon hearing this, everyone suddenly understood. So, they will eventually return to the cafeteria, Yichen remarked. Yichen nodded gravely. What will we do if they return while we are still here? Will they negotiate to share the food, or will they resort to outright theft? Surely, they will opt for theft. They are unwilling to share even with their own, which led to their conflict and allowed the zombies to infiltrate. Zhou Feng finally displayed a moment of insight. Indeed, the likelihood of them resorting to force is high. Moreover, the remaining individuals are likely all male. While we still have girls with us, placing us at a disadvantage. I cannot concur with this notion. That Songming has spoken again. Chenggu, your prowess allows you to take down several adversaries single-handedly. Lao Go is also commendable. Let us concede he can manage too. Xin and I could easily dispatch one individually. Furthermore, we possess the advantage of terrain. Situated within the cafeteria, we could effortlessly repel them. Akin to a solitary warrior holding back a multitude. However, your thoughts are overly optimistic. Should they be unable to enter, what if they resort to mutual destruction? A single blaze could engulf the entire cafeteria. What would we do then? Yichen queried Zhou Feng. You know I can contend with multiple opponents. Yet are you aware that I am not capable of taking a life? These individuals may no longer be human, but rather demons. They could murder their own for sustenance. Do you truly believe they would hesitate to do the same to us? When conflict arises, while I shall refrain from killing, they will not. The barefooted fear not the shod. Are you not aware of that? No matter how skilled one may be, one must still fear the kitchen knife. Moreover, we have several young women to protect. While I may be inclined to subdue them, they are intent on taking our lives. Chapter 30. The turn of events by Yichen is merely an ordinary high school student. In the face of such a sudden transformation in his environment, his ability to remain composed and lead his classmates to safety is indeed remarkable. How many high school students could achieve such a feat? In this dire circumstance, everyone seeks to preserve their own lives, indifferent to the fates of others. Yet Yichen is determined to safeguard everyone's well-being. Without him, this group would be utterly lost, quickly dissolving into disarray. A calm and sagacious leader is the very core of any collective endeavor. However, asking Yichen to take a life is beyond his capacity. His upbringing has instilled in him the belief that we reside in a civilized society governed by rules. Moreover, he could never bring himself to extinguish a living soul. Slaying zombies is one thing. Taking a human life is entirely different. This is not a film where the protagonist can simply declare, I shall kill. His recent analysis has left everyone in a cold sweat, as though their fates now teeter precariously on the edge of the guillotine. In the coming days, let us prepare food and water. We may need to devise a plan to leave the school and seek a relatively safer location. Yichen procured a sheet of paper and a pen, handing them to Zhou Feng. Please sketch a map from the school to your home, marking the main routes and significant buildings, particularly places such as shopping centers where we might find water and food. Additionally, denote densely populated residential areas. There's no need for such complexity, Chenggu. Yichen interjected, revealing the offline map stored on her phone for everyone to see. Very well, let us familiarize ourselves with this map and promptly formulate an evacuation plan. Our ultimate goal is to reach Zhou Feng's home, Yichen concluded, rising to his feet and striding toward the cafeteria's exit. From a distance, he gazed toward the girls' dormitory, where thick smoke continued to billow, uncertain whether it had already spread to the woods by Qingxua Lake. A sense of unease stirred within Yichen's heart, recalling the horde of zombies they encountered at the lakeside. The sheer number was almost equivalent to that of an entire senior class. It was implausible that all of them were students who remained on campus. Undoubtedly, some had infiltrated from the outside. More than 30 hours had elapsed, and the inferno still blazed, likely attracting even more zombies. The prospect of a zombie tide was too daunting for Yichen to contemplate. In addition to the impending threat of the undead, he also had to contend with human dangers. While Yichen was lost in thought, the sounds of a struggle and pursuit suddenly erupted from the kitchen. Someone was calling for him loudly, a cry so piercing that even the zombies outside the restaurant turned towards it. Alarmed, Yichen dashed towards the kitchen. Inside, chaos reigned as people scrambled from the employee corridor into the hallway. Upon seeing Yichen, someone shouted, "Brother Chun, that lunatic has escaped." "What happened?" Yichen demanded, his voice sharp. I wanted to ask him more questions. I couldn't believe my classmates could be so cruel. But suddenly, he seemed to snap, pushed me down, and ran away. Ruching's face was a mask of apology and fear. He has already caught up, Zhou Feng reported. He left without taking anything? Yichen mused, glancing towards the door at the end of the corridor, which had been thoughtfully left ajar by Yichen. Turning back towards the dining area, he noticed two zombies staggering through the shattered glass door. "Grab your weapons," Yichen exclaimed, already clutching a steel pipe as he sprinted down the corridor, seizing a spatula as well. Ever since the zombies had left the boys' dormitory, Yichen had kept a weapon close at hand for any unforeseen circumstances, even sleeping with the steel pipe beside him for immediate access. His call for weaponry prompted the others to begin searching for their own steel pipes. "Zhou Feng, get everyone to shut the kitchen door and retreat to the duty room. Weapons must remain at the ready. We must be adaptable." By the time Yichen finished shouting, he had reached the end of the corridor. Pushing open the door, he spotted Yichen not far ahead, encircled by several zombies, struggling to evade them with his impressive parkour skills. "Old he catch!" Yichen hurled the steel pipe towards Yichen. Yichen leaped and caught it, plunging it into the eye socket of a nearby zombie. Yichen felt a deep admiration, thinking to himself that if he were given a spatula, it would likely serve only to scoop sand to blind the zombies. Yet he remained uncertain whether the zombies could see at all. As these thoughts occupied his mind, his hands did not falter. Soon, the two of them had dispatched several nearby zombies. However, casting his gaze into the distance, he noticed more zombies continuously converging, likely drawn to the campus by the fire. The wall over there had collapsed, allowing many zombies from the street to pour in. He casually pointed it out to Yichen. Indeed, a significant breach had formed in one section of the wall, through which zombies were entering the campus. "What about that madman?" Yichen inquired. He ran ahead, toward the faculty apartments. But he probably won't make it there. Indeed, the faculty apartments were also infested with numerous zombies, and without a weapon, the consequences for that madman were all too predictable. Yichen glanced toward the faculty apartments, shoved the spatula into Yichen's hands, and reclaimed the steel pipe from him. "You should head back. I will bring the madman back." "Is that really necessary, Chengge? He has already gone that way. It's far too dangerous for you to go alone. Don't worry about it. Just return quickly. If he manages to escape, we may find ourselves in peril." Yichen pushed Yichen toward the direction of the cafeteria, and with great reluctance, Yichen complied. Taking a deep breath, Yichen set off toward the faculty apartments. Although the distance between the faculty apartments and the first cafeteria was not extensive, a landscaped flower bed lay in between, complete with artificial hills towering over a person's height, obscuring his view of the situation ahead. He could only navigate based on the direction Yichen had indicated. As he maneuvered past several holly trees that remained lush and green, even in winter, a disheveled zombie appeared before him. Further in the distance, behind the artificial hill, several pairs of green legs emerged. There were zombies everywhere.